And we are live. Amber Vilhauer here. And, just before we went live, I told AJ, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry because this is an incredibly special moment for me, as it is for AJ, my dear, dear friend who is launching her book today. Write a must read. You can see it in her backdrop there. And I cannot wait to get my copy, AJ.
Oh, I should have sent that to you way in advance. I'm sorry.
No. Well, you did. You sent me the digital copy. I just can't wait to hold it in my hand because to all of you watching, this has been many, many years in the making, this moment. AJ and I met maybe 15 years ago at the start of our careers, kind of in this space. And it has been such an honor in my lifetime to watch AJ grow, to watch her career grow, to watch her impact grow. And this book is one of those world-changing books. So I definitely want to make sure you are grabbing your copy, grab multiple copies. I was telling AJ, I surprised her. My company bought 20 copies of her book just earlier today, and I'm about to place an order for another 50 more. And I'm just going to keep refreshing that order because I want to send them to all of my clients in their onboarding boxes when somebody decides to work with my company. And I made that decision. It was actually a really easy decision, not just because I love AJ and I trust her and she's one of my dearest and oldest friends, but there truly is, in my opinion, no better resource for authors if you are looking to write a book that is a must read. I love your title, AJ. And I kind of want to ask you, did you have to go through different iterations of the title? Did it just come naturally to you? It's such a good one.
It wasn't the title. The title was Reader First. And that is the core philosophy that I teach in my workshop and in this book. And the thing is, a good title sounds good to you because it's familiar. But if the rest of the world doesn't know what it means, it's not as great. So I had to go back to the drawing board on Reader First. But I'm
So
happy
what
with
is, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you also have to tell me what reader first, we'll tell other people because I already know, but what does reader first mean when you say that? Expand on that a little bit for me.
Sure. So the core message for my book is that a book is not about something, it's for someone. And when you make that mental shift away from thinking about your own collection of ideas, knowledge, stories, and thinking instead about the reader where they are at this moment, where they want to go, and what's standing in their way, and then what you have to help them get to where they want to go and get past those obstacles, that is the thinking about someone, like who is it for, not just who is it for in terms of the beginning phases I'm writing for these people, but all the way through. Who's it for and how are they experiencing the content. So reader first means in every decision making process, in developing, writing, editing, publishing, marketing, put the reader first. So it's just a shortened version of a book is not about something, it's for someone. And in my class, in my workshop, it's how I remind students. I always say reader first, last, and always, because they have to be reminded to come back to that touchstone, which is the reader, to make those decisions and to keep going sometimes.
100% to keep going. And I can speak to this personally because when I have been trying to write my book, and when one of your best friends is AJ Harper, it's like it's got to be a great book, right? And so
Pressure.
the pressure definitely is on. And you look, if you're going to put your ideas out there, you want them to be amazing. You want them to be your best stuff, and you hit these walls in writing that it's such an excruciating process at times because you start to challenge your beliefs and challenge your greatness and then challenge 72 other things. But what do you recommend, AJ, to people that are hitting that brick wall? How do you get them to keep going, just as you've done for your students, to get on the other side? And then they're so grateful that they finished the book. They're getting awards. They're getting starred Kirkus reviews. I mean, incredible results. But how do you help them get over that wall?
Well, first, thank you for mentioning these results and reviews, because one of the things that I care so much about is that people are writing a book that really is a must read, not just any book, not just a lead magnet. The best lead magnet is the one that is actually great that people talk about, not just something they can get done quickly. There's value in those things for sure, but that's not what I'm writing about. I'm writing about how to write something that people love and recommend to a ton of people. So it's important, first to make sure that that's clear, and that's where they get the really amazing critical reviews and all the cool stuff that happens because they actually wrote a book that's fantastic. But staying the course, reader first is actually the thing that helps you stay the course because if you're thinking instead, hey, this book is for someone, then all those doubts and fears that you have, all the obstacles, that's what carries you forward while you're struggling because you just keep coming back to that touchstone. Okay, I'm writing in service to my reader. I'm writing in service to my reader. So my insecurities around this don't matter so much. These
Hmm.
challenges, okay, I have them. I can move past them because I really need to help these people.
Hmm. I have to ask you, I was just while you were talking, thinking about some of your great achievements in your career, the things that really stand out to you. And it could be maybe some results that your students got. It could be, I don't know, a certain review that you may have gotten for your own book. But can you just talk to me about some of the milestone moments in your journey in the past decade or so?
I mean, back in the day when I was a ghostwriter, it was really cool to be working with some thought leaders that you and I have both worked with and some that I can't mention. And it was a very exciting, heady experience to be um, part of that world. But honestly, and I also, started a publishing company, which became an award-winning publishing company for LGBTQ fiction and sold that earlier this year. I'm super proud
Huge
of the
accomplishment.
amazing authors that came out of that and that are on to amazing careers right now. That's huge. I love that accomplishment for changing the narrative around LGBTQ characters in fiction. But I honestly, the best thing in the whole world is when my students tell me that they got an email or a comment from someone whose life was changed from their book.
Oh.
I just ca and c I say, "Give me the candy." I just call it candy. More candy, please. All the candy, because that's what I want. And just yesterday, I was recording a podcast with Susan Barber, who wrote The Visibility Factor, and she told me that someone told her they not only do they love her book, but they keep it in their backpack because they have to use it as a reference all the time. And what they want to get a helicopter and dump 100 copies out from the helicopter randomly. I said, you better make sure that you are not liable for anything. It's going to be whacked in the head. But that to me, you asked me about accomplishments. That's it. It's through. I cannot tell you the delight. Every week, one of my authors is doing something cool. I just finished my manuscript. I just pitched. I have one author I just saw post, they just turned their manuscript into an agent. So and so's here. I mean, that's it. That's what I love. That's my true joy.
I mean, you're making incredible change in the world, and that's
I
so
know it's so
special
cool.
and
It's just a
rewarding.
ripple effect. It's the best.
See, AJ doesn't take much time to celebrate herself, right? I mean, she's an author, and a lot of times authors like deflect attention and they just are about the written word and about the work. But I push AJ a little bit out of her comfort zone to say, no, no, look at all of the amazing things that are unfolding. I mean, look at all of these chat comments. They're popping up every 5
Oh,
seconds.
I see so many people.
So much love.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how many wonderful people I get to work with.
Okay, so let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
What breaks your heart when you think about this industry and what you see? What breaks your heart?
I think a person who wants to write a book, that's a precious dream. And for a lot of people, it's a dream they've had for a really long time. I don't know. I seem to attract a lot of people to my workshop who put writing away when they were younger, but then they might
Mm.
whisper to me, well, I really kind of wanted to be a writer. And then they find themselves again. And that's just a magical experience. Um, remind me what the question was again. I got
What
busy
breaks
people.
your heart in this
Oh,
industry?
well,
No, it
okay.
is. It breaks your heart when they don't
Breaks
get
my
their book
heart when
out.
they give up. It breaks my heart when they give up. What breaks my heart with other folks is I think underestimating authors. And then authors think it's okay to underestimate themselves. So we say you know, you can publish in this amount of time, you can do this or that super fast, you don't need these other things. And I think that that underestimates
Yes.
authors and what they're capable of. And the thing that I
Yes.
think is really important to understand is that most of the problem is that we don't understand what it takes to write a book and we don't understand publishing. So that mystery fuels all of our insecurities. And so because we don't actually understand it, we're ignorant about it. Why wouldn't we be? It's a whole nother
Yeah. Right.
because of the mystery, then the fact that we don't get it just is like proof to the inner critic in us that shouldn't be doing it. So what we do instead is we look for a fill in the blank book that was popular when you and I came up. Um, we look for something quick, we look for something easy, and I think it's because we don't think we have what it takes, so we'll just do it as fast as we can and as easy as we can. But when you apply a reader focused methodology that I teach in the book, it makes talent not irrelevant, writing ability not irrelevant. I would never make that claim, but it makes it easy for people who don't think they can do it to be able to do it. There are people in who've come through my class who were absolutely sure they couldn't do it, and you can't even believe the critical reviews, not just Amazon reviews, but from the publishing industry, reviews that they are getting. Was it easy? Absolutely not. But they did it just by following this guidance that the core of it is focusing on the reader experience the whole way through.
Guys, you have to get AJ's book. I'm not even saying it because she's my friend and I believe in her. This book, if you have a book in you, a second book, a fifth book, you've got to follow AJ's process because for years I've been watching the quality of what comes out of her workshop, and that same process has been written in her book now. But it's not even just, the quality of the book that they're producing, but it's how fulfilled your clients are too. And they're just so proud of themselves for doing it
Mhm.
right. Speak to me. And I know we're almost out of time. You've got to get to your next guest. And I just want to say thank you for letting me kick this off. What
Who else
so
could it be?
special.
Who else could it
I
be? We
don't
were just
know.
little peons back in the day, just little servants to the and, we decided we both left part of an industry because it lacked integrity, and then we built something that both of your side and my
Mhm.
side, you in promotion and marketing and me in writing, we built the type of companies and
We did.
classes and experiences based on the integrity that we felt was lacking in what we had experienced, and I think that's amazing. So
I
who
do
else?
too. I don't know. I just love you. But one last question I have to ask, because these authors, they write their great book. They have the ability to make impact. They're getting awards, trade reviews. Talk to me just for a minute or two about the launch itself. What are your beliefs about, because there are so many different types of launches and launch strategies out there, and most of them are not what you and I would recommend. So do you want to speak into that for just a minute? What do you think should
Well, I think you have to think about what's gonna mean something to your reader and provide value for them versus what everyone else is doing. There's some stuff for this launch that I did that was just because I thought it would be helpful, and that might not be the thing that would work for your launch. And there's other stuff people do in their launch that I thought, I don't know if people really gonna think that's cool or if it's just gonna be something to do. So, but I think most importantly is to think about the launch as the beginning. Elizabeth Marshall says this too. The launch is the starting pistol, not the finish line. So you'll see a lot of that over
Yes.
this summer because I'll be rolling things out over the summer versus everything stops tomorrow. And that's what most people do is they get burned, and honestly it's because they're tired.
Well, and I think that they can only think about so much at one time, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of times you get authors that finish the book before they have the capacity to start thinking about the launch. And I'm saying, no, no, start thinking about the launch when you start writing your book, because that can
Mhm.
also morph into how you create the book. But then also, you've got to think beyond what's the vision that you're trying to create. And I know that you'll be touching on that throughout the rest of the live stream.
Mhm.
But guys, AJ is somebody that you definitely want to follow, be on her email list, get in her world and study what she's doing. And then you can take ideas and start to implement that into your own launch, because she's the real deal. There aren't very many of those, but she's one of them.
Thank you, Amber. And just on a quick note on that is, one of the things we're doing that other people can do is I'm doing a summer writing challenge, which we'll announce later in the week to keep things going and to just think about what you can do within the next couple months after your launch. So I'm thinking about my launch as more of, instead of it ending today, it really starts.
I'm so grateful for that. You're really leading the way for other authors who are about to follow in your footsteps, girl. So congratulations on your big book
Thank you,
launch.
my
I'll let you
friend.
introduce your next guest. Thanks for letting me be here.
Thanks. So our next guest is my friend Jeff Shaw. And is Jeff, yay!
Hey, happy book birthday! I'm so excited for you. I'm
Oh,
excited for the world that gets to read your book.
yay. So Jeffrey Shaw is the author of Lingo and the Self-Employed Life, two amazing books you want to get your hands on. And I'm really honored to have helped you work on those books. So, Jeff, I really wanted to talk about with you the value of choosing to write a must read over writing something that, to just get it out in the world. So, tell me about that because your must reads have absolutely changed your professional life.
100%. And honestly, before meeting you, and you may recall, or may not recall, but I mean, I was writing another book,
Yes.
and that book got shelved. And when you and I met, it's kind of like, well, where do I go from here? And I, like a lot of people, thought I was writing a book. I wouldn't say I'm calling it a business card. I would say it was more my calling out card or my coming out card, because I was writing a book to get myself to break out of the photo industry from which is I was previously known in. And I wanted to take on a bigger stage in the world and work with entrepreneurs. So I was writing a book, but I thought was going to be a one-time thing, writing a book as my calling out card, and I'm done. I broke out of an industry and now I would be in a bigger platform. Never did I think I'd become a serial author, but working with you turned me into a serial author because I just loved the process so much. I found so much more in myself than I could have imagined, and it's changed my life. It's changed my life in so many ways. And the most recent book, The Self-Employed Life. I mean, you and I've talked about this. I'm a business coach at heart, so I'm always suggesting people like, what's the back end? Like, what can this book do for you to have that plan in place and also be willing to follow where it takes you, because I happen to be, because I just finished an event for my self-employed business institute, so I'm in the office, and this was not thought of when I was writing The Self-Employed Life. The book was out, and it was because the book was out I was like, okay, this book will give people great concepts, great ideas, but people need help doing it. How do I solve that problem? How do I solve the problem, which I've seen my whole life, where people are super talented and good at what they do, but nobody's ever taught them how to make money at what they do? And so the idea of an entire business institute, which I see as my entire future, 10, 15 years that I will be running it before I sell it and transition it. This is my entire future. This is my legacy. And
Yes.
this comes from having written a book.
No, it doesn't come from just writing a book because what you did was you said it has to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I mean by, you can't build, okay, you can. You could build a business off of a book that people don't really read. People do it all the time. But you're having really profound experiences because your readers are having transformation as they read your book. And do you think that you would have this 15-year plan if you had written just a little, toss aside book that was there for credibility?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've really learned from you is the readability. You know, when you put reader first, they actually read the book,
Yeah.
right? You know, and it's amazing to me how obvious that is and how not obvious it is. You know, how so many people, if you're writing a book because you just think you're getting a book out there in the world, then what you're not realizing is if people don't read it, it's not accomplishing your bigger goal. You know, so I've really, you know, through you, I've really learned to actually, you want people to read the book. And
Yeah.
when they read it, it, I should say, it changes their life and it changes yours as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really proud of you because you just got a ridiculously awesome Kirkus review.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Kirkus is a trade review journal, and they are really tough. And I always hold my breath when someone I worked with as submits to Kirkus because oh, it
You
can
had me scared.
it's for listen, it can be, they don't pull any punches over there.
Yeah.
So the fact that you got a stellar, I mean, almost every line of it is just like a singing your praises.
Yeah.
You have so many pull quotes from it that it's an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
And you can't get those critical reviews when you aren't caring about the reader and the reader experience.
Yeah. 100%. And, you know, in hindsight, when you and I wrote Lingo together, I mean, at the end of the day, Lingo is about the energy of words, right? I mean, I teach it um, in a way that it's a brand messaging strategy, and I want people to apply it, and I want it to be actionable. But at the end of the day, it's because I fundamentally believe words have energy, and how you say and how you communicate, and whether those words are spoken or how those words are delivered on the pages of a book, the energy by what you're saying and how much you care about putting reader first is actually what comes through to the reader. They feel it, they know it. And
Mhm,
any author will say the highest compliment is when someone, you know, maybe you meet a reader in person and
mhm.
they say, as this Kirkus review said, that they felt who I was genuinely came through. I don't know the reviewer, but the highest compliment is when a reader, you get a chance to meet a reader, and they say to you that you are exactly who you are on the pages of your books. There's just no higher compliment than that. And it's because your energy was clear, your intentions were well intended, and you put the reader first, and they feel it and they know it.
Yeah, and that's craft. It's not, you don't have to, you didn't know how to do that when you set out to write a book. But I believe that you actually do know how to do that now. So if you were to sit down and write book 3, which I'm sure I'm going to hear about soon,
If
uh,
this is your strategy to let me go, it's not working. I might be able to do it myself, but I'm not doing it without AJ. Just
okay,
warning
fair.
you.
Okay, fair. I always want to be working on whatever you're doing, because I adore you. Um, that said, you have craft that you didn't have before.
100%.
Yeah. So you've the mystery is all out. You know the sequence of things. You know the things you need to ask yourself. You know other considerations. So you can actually get a lot done on your own because you've learned these strategies. And yeah, everybody still needs an editor. I mean, that's just everyone needs an editor. I need an editor. Everyone needs an editor. But I'm just thrilled that you can work through a lot of these things on your own and then come and say, hey, I think this is my book.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, so many things I've learned from you. I mean, the two things that I've learned that, yes, in part I can do them myself now is, and that's what's so brilliant about this book, by the way, because you're teaching what I didn't think would ever be teachable. Like I'm a coach, and I've done much of my coaching work has been one-to-one, and it's so easy to think that you can't write in a book what people need to experience one-to-one, but you somehow have cracked the code and figured out how to systematize how to write a book in a way that I've read the book twice. And honestly, I truly think this might be the only book I've ever read twice, other than, okay, a Buddhist book called Diamond Cutter is the only other book I read twice. But literally, I think yours is the only book I've ever read twice.
Oh, my friend.
Right. So, but you cracked the code, like, to be able to, so yes, we can learn to do it ourselves. And the two big things that really stand out to me is, one is understanding what developmental editing is, right? It's moving the chunks I just never thought about the importance of that. So moving the chunks, and the second one are the editing passes. I
Yes.
mean, that's such gold. And you and I have talked about, like, what's become my favorite pass is the diversity pass,
Yes.
getting your book in the hands of people from all different walks of life so that you can make sure that everyone is represented, that everyone feels your voice, that everyone feels understood, and that there are examples in your book that speak to everyone. And, we're just, as an author, you just can't do that all on your own. And those developmental passes are just brilliant.
Thank you so much. That's the last part of the book, which is the editing pass method that I developed, honestly, because I have a little OCD about if a book is actually working or not. And that is a benefit to everybody here that I have this little OCD, because now everybody has a methodology for getting through their own self edit before they turn it into uh,
Yeah.
to editors.
Not to mention security that offers. I mean,
Yeah.
if you feel less naked if you've been putting it out there, after you know that not only have you had advanced readers, but you had people read the book when you have assigned them a perspective to look at your book from that perspective you've assigned as as an editing pass. It's such a comfort and security. I cannot imagine putting a book out without having gone through a series of passes to know that, hey, to the best of my ability, every T has been crossed and every I has been dotted. And that gives you great security.
That was the goal. That was the goal. Well, so Jeff, thank you so much for coming today and supporting me in my launch. Um,
I could not be happier for you and for, I've said to you many times, not one person has, I don't think in our, and I mean this sincerely, I don't think anyone in our modern age has done more for the benefit of literacy and writing books than you have, AJ. And sorry.
oh, Jeff.
I mean, what you've done for the art of writing is so phenomenal that you're a gift. You're such a gift to the world. What you've done for writing, you have made me fall in love with writing and books. I mean, one of the proudest moments of my recent experience was dropping my book off at the little libraries. There's 10,000 of them in the United States, little boxes where you get to put your book. That never could have been as much of a joy and pleasure if it wasn't for you helping me fall in love with the importance of books.
Oh man.
You're changing the world, my friend.
Oh, Jeff. That's amazing. Thank you. I'm so touched by that.
Well,
I
you've touched me.
appreciate you so much.
Good.
And I can't wait for the next one. And everybody get Jeff's books, Lingo and the Self-Employed Life.
Enjoy your book birthday.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thanks, my friend.
So next we're going to talk with some of the workshop students that have come out of my top 3 book workshop to talk specifically about how Reader First helps you craft a must-read book. So today, what do we have? Oh, there's Don Corey, author of When to Say Yes, Suzanne Mariga, author of Profit First for Minority Business Owners. We have Cindy Thomason, whose book just came out, Motherhood, Apple Pie, and All That Happy Horse Shit. See, who else do we have here? There's Sue Barber, author of The Visibility Factor. I just talked about you, Sue, in our conversation about the backpack. And is that everybody we have for this panel right now? Good? Okay, great. So thank you guys for supporting me and coming out today. You're all published authors and you wrote game-changing books. So I wanted to just ask you how thinking about your reader first helped you to write and edit your book. And maybe I'll start with you, Suzanne, if you want to share about that, how that reader first idea and methodology helped you.
Sure, definitely. AJ, when I first got the idea of writing my book, Profit First for Minority Business Enterprises, um, I knew that there was a message that I wanted to get out there. I knew that there was a life-changing message, but I had no idea where to start. There wouldn't have been a book without you. So first of all, I want to say that. Just and then it was like how to relate to the audience, and you really helped me, I guess, peel back layers of myself and really stripped down to vulnerability, because there's nothing like telling everything about like your own private thoughts, putting it in writing, because you knew that by having that level of vulnerability, you would be able to really connect with your audience on a different level. I mean, and in our book we talked about some very controversial things too, and so getting to that level and peeling back that layer of honesty, and you helping me figure out how to do that, and that was really the changer of the book. And to this day, I still get reviews from people I don't even know, or emails saying, "Oh my gosh, your book changed my life." College kids are saying, "Can you come and speak to my club about this?" So, like I said, there would be no book without you, because it would have been very much a textbook book.
Oh, you have you have so many beautiful stories in your book that I know are very deeply personal to you. Have you received any feedback from people about the stories?
All the time. There's not a week that goes by that I don't get a review or an email, or, people come up and hug me and go, "Oh my God, your story just,"
Okay.
and I'm like, "Who are you? Did I meet you?" I don't want to be mean and say I forgot your name. But I mean, just every week, there's not a week that goes by that I don't hear something
Oh,
about how the book has changed their lives.
oh my gosh, you must feel amazing having that experience.
It's awesome knowing that our book, had that impact in the world.
Oh, thank you so much, Suzanne. Thank you. How about you, Cindy? Cindy Thomason, author of two books, actually. Profit First for e-commerce sellers, or just
Mhm.
e-com? Okay, and
Myself.
and the most recent one, her heart book, Motherhood, Apple Pie, and All That Happy Horse Shit. So, Cindy, can you talk about how Reader First helped you write that book that was truly on your heart?
Well, it happened because of the first book. The first book I wrote, like Suzanne said, more of a textbook. I had a few interviews in there, but I was really trying to get across these technical points, and it wasn't working. And luckily, through an introduction by Mike McAllowitz, he connected me with you, AJ, and through that connection, you read my first attempt and said, "Okay, your book can help people." And honestly, I was just at the point of I just wanted to get done. It just who even was thinking about helping anybody at this point, And but that changed everything. It changed how I viewed what I was even trying to accomplish, because I think I did know that I wanted to write it to help people, but it got lost in the whole just trying to get something done and get something on paper. So the process that you kind of came in and helped me save the day at the end with the first book really set me up to think, I don't want to do this like this again. I really do feel like I want to write another book. There is something on my heart I want to talk about, but I wanted to do it right from the beginning. I wanted to focus on the right stuff from the beginning. And so the process that you outline of putting the reader first and always first in everything that you do, every editing pass, everything, you're approaching it from that perspective. And it really just changes, it changes everything that you think about with your book. And like Suzanne, I have people saying, "You were in my head." It's like you were in my head. And that's just like the best compliment ever from somebody you don't even know.
Are you kidding? You're getting those comments? That's
Yeah.
the best. That's what But see, that comes from really thinking about, and you thought through, you mapped your reader journey, which I teach in the book, and you really thought, well, wait a minute, and you moved stuff around because you realized they needed something else first, and I just that pays off then with people who are having an immersive reading experience and don't want to put the book down.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And it's just the best compliment. By the time you're done with all of those editing passes, you're just tired, And so when it is out in the world and you get that kind of feedback, it makes you know that that was all worth it.
It's a lot of work to make something seem effortless.
Exactly.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm so proud of you, and I'm really honored that you came to workshop to work on that heart book. That was a special experience for sure.
Thank you. Thank
Um,
you, AJ.
Don Corey, hey, author of
Hey, AJ, congratulations. What a huge day.
I know.
Big day for you. Happy birthday, but just a huge day for everyone that's going to read your book, because it makes it so easy. to write a book. People say to me, wow, it's such a big accomplishment. You published a book. I'm like, it's easy. Once you have the process in place, piece of cake.
Well, you wrote When to Say Yes, and I love that book. And there were a lot of, times when you were writing it that you wondered if there were certain pieces you were actually going to be able to do. And you, you were dedicated to the craft of it and learning that. But how ultimately did thinking about your reader first help you make important decisions?
Mm-hmm. I came back to this review I wrote of my book, which you asked me to do.
Yeah.
I was probably 3/4 the way through the book, and you asked me to write a bad review of the book. And I wrote a bad review, and I'll just read it here quickly. Don't bother. There's nothing new here. Corey is rehashing old information with a slightly new twist. Additionally, it's way too academic and difficult to follow. The stories are disconnected from reality. Buy this other book instead. So just that thinking process forced me to go back and say, okay, I need to make sure, because that's the review that you could get if you weren't putting the reader first.
Yes.
And so forced me to go back in one of those editing passes and make sure that none of those things were true. In fact, the opposite was true.
That's right. It became a to-do list for what you wanted to make sure they wouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I want everybody to get everybody's book here. And Dawn's book has one of my favorite, Call to Greatness, which is the conclusion of the book that I teach how to write a different kind of conclusion for a nonfiction book in class and also in the book. And I love yours, because anytime somebody brings up George Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life, that's a good thing. Dawn, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Congrats.
Before I actually end with you, I just wanted to ask, what's been your experience hearing from readers?
My experience is a couple of different ways. The reviews I'm getting on Amazon, which are just reinforcing some of the points that I talked about earlier. But also, when I talk to people, they just tell me how easy it is to read and how engaging it is.
And not academic.
Not academic, yes. And it's funny, this imposter syndrome is still there, because I'm like, really? It's that good, right? So that's some of the feedback. So
awesome. I love to hear that. Sue Barber, hey.
Get to talk to you 2 days in a row.
Author of The Visibility Factor. So talk to me a little bit about Reader First and how it helped you shape your book.
Well, as you remember, I came to you as someone who blogged all the time. And so for me, I think I had initial draft, probably had so many former blogs in there that I was going to start with and try to go from there. And they just wasn't working. And I think the reason it wasn't working was because those stories were more teaching moments, like, Suzanne and Cindy talked about, and they were not vulnerable stories that people could connect with at an emotional level and understand the situations. And so I remember writing so many drafts to you, and you're like, nope, not quite there yet, Sue. Just keep going. You're going to get it. And at your editing retreat, after I heard other people's drafts, and I literally was almost crying hearing theirs, I thought, okay, Sue, this is time. You got to do this. And I came back to read it to you, and I almost cried when I read it, and you cried. And I thought, okay, we're here. We're getting somewhere now. So this is what it needs. And that's the reader first.
When you're vulnerable and you share a part of yourself, you don't have to share all the, stuff that all the stuff. I mean, we don't have to overshare. We don't have to do what we're uncomfortable doing. We can do it within the confines of our values and culture and all of that. But when you do share some vulnerability on the other side of it, that's what helps you connect to the reader, especially when you're sharing vulnerability in a moment where they're feeling unsure of themselves, or it's something that they worry about. So it doesn't surprise me that you have so many people who value your book and feel connected to your book. Without it, it's a collection of good ideas, and it doesn't mean your knowledge isn't great. It just means that it's maybe harder to take it in. And when you feel like an author gets you, you're more apt to pay attention to the rest of the things that they're saying. So it builds trust. I told your backpack story about a person who keeps your book in their backpack, and it sounds like you're getting a lot of good other feedback from readers too.
Yeah, I even had somebody who wrote me a text the other day and said that they had a women's group and they were going around the room saying which book, they just had to have and was most impactful. And it isn't even someone I know. And she pulled my book out and said, my book. And I said, oh my gosh, I have to pay her. Who was that woman? So, a friend of mine had passed the book out to other people at her work and somebody just really loved it. And that's the book she mentioned. So I was really touched by that. I think that just says a lot about what I initially wanted to create was a guide for people to be able to use repeatedly. And that's what's happening. So I'm so excited for it.
I mean, that doesn't happen. You're all getting book recommendations. That doesn't happen unless somebody really was experienced some sort of change by reading the book. So congrats on that. Well, thank you, Don, Suzanne, Cindy, and Susan for coming to support me today. Everybody get their books, please. These are amazing books, and I'm so proud to have been a part of it. Thank you all so much.
Congratulations, AJ.
Congrats, AJ.
Thank you. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of core message, which is something that I teach in the book and in workshop. And joining us today, I believe we have, John Briggs. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of core message. Feedback on someone in the book and in workshop. And joining us today, can you hear that? Okay, it was you, Tara. Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
Good. So, John, I'll start with you. You wrote Profit First for Micro Gyms, and you're working on book 2. Yeah?
Yes.
So, your story is actually featured in my book as one that, where you came into the process with one idea for a core message and then ended up changing it and how that shaped your book. But just to clarify for everybody watching here, core message is a foundational truth on which your whole book is built. So it's not everything you want to teach. It's not the promise. It's not a tagline. It's not a lot of things. It's just this true thing that's transformational on its own. So that if a person heard just your core message, they could start to make a change. And so that's just for clarity for everybody here. That's what core message is. So when you came into workshop, you were using the Profit First core message, right? Take your profit first.
Yeah. And it's funny, I didn't even remember what his was because you ingrained mine in me so much. But yeah, I was going with, Mike wrote this book. I'm just writing the same book for gym owners. And you're kind of like, it's not really working. And
well, it could work. I mean, it's a good core message. It's the core message of Profit First, which I wrote with Mike, so I'm proud of that. But ultimately, it's about the reader, right? So we just established we're putting the reader first. Your readers were micro gym owners, so like CrossFit and little gyms. People doing weird stuff in gyms is how I always think, John. People doing weird stuff in gyms.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I think what was great though is you pulled it out of me because the reason it wasn't working for my readers is that profit was a dirty word to them. Because in their mind, I'm doing this charitable purpose, I'm saving lives. And it just, when I was trying to write with that in mind, it just wasn't connecting. And anyway, so you pulled out a whole bunch of questions out of me, which are in the book. And the value that's in that book is tremendous. I can't believe it. So anyways, do you want me to reveal what mine was? I don't know where you want me to go.
Now it was the Profit First core message, which is great, obviously. And then it became,
and you're talking like, well, what do they need to hear? What's the thing that they need to know first before they'll even accept any of the other stuff? Right. And I'm like, they need to know they deserve to be profitable.
Yes.
And like when I said it, and when you asked the question, I thought it. I mean, it was like that magical goosebump moment. I'm like, that's it.
Yes.
That is exactly what it is. They deserve to be profitable. If there's one thing they can take away, and I say that one sentence, then my book accomplished what it needed to. They deserve to be profitable. And I can't tell you how much that structured the way the rest of the book went. And I was able to use that as a filter so many times with a plethora of content that I had. It was so powerful. That one moment that we had when you pulled that out of me, like, seriously changed the whole trajectory of the book, and honestly, the way it serves the gym community now. Like, it was phenomenal.
Thank you for saying that. And it changed the way you thought about your book. You wrote a different outline. You started to actually take ownership of the book versus having a derivative of Profit First. Nothing wrong with that, but it's really your book now. Like, it's your book for your people. So, and it helps you make decisions, as you said. You said something that I want to follow up on. How has it changed things for the gym community?
Well, I am privileged now that the book is out there, and our first call to action is email me. After the end of chapter 1, I kind of lay out the problems I understand that they're facing, just like you teach us. I could connect with them, and then I said, you guys have to understand that all these things that you can do to make a difference aren't going to matter if you don't first accept you deserve to be profitable. So please email me that you deserve to be profitable.
Right.
And so weekly, I get emails from gym owners. Sometimes there's a couple sentences. Sometimes it's their life story. And it's amazing because you helped me uncover what was holding them back. And now that that's in my book, gym owners are able to stay in business. I mean, we just went through the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
All of our clients who are using the method that we teach in the book before COVID happened, they're still in business.
That's amazing.
And a lot of that is because they first believed I deserve this.
Right.
And then it was there, and all the wonderful things that happened were in place.
Yeah, that is critical. So, some people might have listened to your message about Profit First, but if you hadn't gotten them over that mindset shift, maybe they wouldn't have listened to it, or maybe they wouldn't have taken action. And so now you're saying businesses are saved because of it.
Yes.
So that's the power.
And lives because of the gym, what gym people do for their members.
Right. Their noble pursuit, as you say.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and I love when you were coming back to workshop and talking about book 2, you just went right to the things you knew how to do from workshop in developing these things. So a lot of people will sit down and write a book without real clarity about core message. And it's a rigorous process. You've both been through it, where I say, that's not it. That's not it. But it's supposed to change a life if that's all you hear. And I think that, and when it does that, people will repeat it. So I'll bet there are people who tell other people your core message.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah. It's easy to share. It's easy to remember. It's powerful and to pass. And it takes a minute to get to that, but then it changes everything. So thank you, John, so much for sharing that and for also allowing me to put your story in the book.
Yeah, it is an honor.
Tara, hey, are you good with the audio?
Yeah, I think I'm good. Am I good on your end?
Yeah. So Tara wrote Money Moves, and has a title that is based on core message, actually. So talk to me a little bit about, and that recently came out, everybody, so you should check that out. Money Moves, you played with core message for a while. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, it was a process. I mean, I think I had a book kind of somewhat outlined for almost like 6 years. And it was just hard because there's a ton, especially in the finance world, there's just a ton of how-to books out there. And I was like, how do you differentiate yourself and make the book something that someone might want to read, not something like that they might look at and then throw away or never look at again. And it's just taking such a complex process, and I know it's the same for everybody, but taking like everything that you know and trying to boil it down into like something that people could remember and connect with. And wow, it was such a process. And I'm just amazed we got there because we had it. You could tell when it was close, but it was just funny. It was like when we finally hit on it, it was just like, that's it. It was like hard. And then it was like, that works. And,
yes.
and your process. And that's why people have to get your book, AJ, because it's not just like there's a few lucky people out there that are gifted and they're the only ones that can do it. And
No.
that was one of the things that you did that resonated with me, because like you overwrote the training. When my first paper that I wrote in college, the teacher said, I gave you a D because I didn't have the heart to give you an F.
Oh, dang.
And so when you were telling me anyone can write a book, I'm like, I don't know about that.
Well, I didn't say it was easy, and it certainly wasn't easy for all of you. John and Tara went through so many drafts. I'm sure they wanted to kill me. But in the end, it's a book that really is making a huge difference. It takes some effort, but that's something anyone can do. They just have to follow. They just have to be determined to do it.
Well, but you've created a process that is accessible. So, and that's one thing I know in my business, and John, probably in yours as well, is when you take something complicated and digest it down so that someone can do it, that takes a lot of work. So you make it look easy, AJ, and it's not.
It's not easy. It's hard for me too. I mean,
you've given us a process, and in your book, you've given a process that someone can go, okay, this is accessible. I mean, you still need that team. You still need your developmental editor and your copy editor and all the people, but you've created a starting place it's very unique. And I'm so excited to be part of this.
Thank you, Tara. And we have to share your core message. We just talked about how hard it was to get to it. Let's hear it. It's a great core message that's actually changed my own financial life. So let's hear it.
Change where your money lives and change how your financial world grows.
I love that, because what I learned from you is that it didn't matter how much money I had or didn't have. It was more about where I was putting it based on where I wanted to go, and that I could just move it, and then that would change things for me versus, say, just constant accumulation.
Right.
I think is a really important message that will help a lot of people take more control of their finances. So tell me, have you heard from any, hasn't been that long since your book came out, but have you heard from any readers?
Well, it's been really exciting. Yes. I've had a lot of people tell me, like Carol Mahoney, she's like, I read it and my whole family's read the book. Everybody's looking at it. I have a ton of people that are reading it and buying it for their kids and going, this is what people need to know right now. And so it's been pretty exciting that it's starting, that people I don't even know are saying, hey, this book, and I like it. It's not a how-to, and people are like, there's stories in here and it's accessible. And that was one of the things that we created different than a regular book. And so that's been fun. And then, I've gotten some of my reviews back, and that's been pleasantly surprising, because you don't know when you send out for a review, what's going to come back.
You got some stellar critical reviews, and it's that reader first mentality that gives you the courage to keep going forward when you have to go through all of these passes. But it's just a sequence of things you need to do versus, say, you have to have some sort of gift.
Yes.
Right? It's just a sequence of things you have to do. It might be that you don't want to do them some days and you might feel exhausted, but in the end, you will get there and have a better book for it. So I'm actually really proud of both of you for just sticking with it. Maybe it's because I get you to a certain point and then you're like, oh, the only way out is through. The only way out is through.
Well, and it's just what I like about the feedback is it's really hitting home what you taught us, that it's not about the writer, it's about the reader.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so obvious when you read it and do it, but it's not obvious when you start, because you feel like, oh, I have all this knowledge I have to give people, but it's not. It's about presenting the information in a way that they can understand and digest it and use it.
So I just want to ask both of you real quickly, John, what is it, how do you feel when you give somebody your book or someone asks you for it? I mean, do you feel a sense of pride to hand it over?
A sense of pride, and probably similar to you, a little bit of embarrassment, like, oh, really? You want this from me? But like, to answer that question too, though, I was thinking about how like your book is the right amount of frankness and motivation and hope. Because there's so many times, and even Amber, who was on first, I worked with her with my book. You get those moments as the author, like, am I good enough? Is this really the message? But I kept coming back to my core message. And I'm like, these gym owners need to know they deserve to be profitable. And so that allowed me to continue to push forward and get through it, so that now I can have that wonderful experience when they're like, can I have your book? It's like, yeah, absolutely, because you deserve to be profitable. Here you go. Hope it serves you.
Yes. So you're more apt to share it and more apt to talk about it and sell it.
Yep.
Awesome. How about you, Tara? What does it feel like to
Yeah, I love this question, because normally I would be kind of like cringeworthy, but the last step in your process is that you have to sit down and read the entire book out loud. And so going through that process, I was like, if there's going to be a cringeworthy moment, this is going to be it, to actually have to hear it out loud. And I was so pleasantly surprised. I was like, this is kind of a good book. But I mean, of course, because I had so much help, but like it's such a team effort. So you write the book, but you have the developmental editing and the copy editing, and then all the advanced readers. So it's not, I wrote the book, but it was a team effort for sure. So, but it was very pleasantly surprised that, like, hey, this is actually kind of a good book. But it was funny how thick it came out. I was like, oh, this is a long book. I think we went off of it. But yeah, your process is solid, because I kind of just did the steps, and some of them were hard, but I just did them anyway. And
That's it.
and it's worth it. If anyone would ask me, send anybody to me and I'll tell them it's so worth it.
Oh, thank you guys so much for coming to support today. I appreciate you. Everybody get John's book, get Tara's book. These are great books, and I'm so proud of both of you. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you, AJ.
Thanks, AJ.
So Jade, if we could allow me to share screen, I want to talk about some book bonuses that we have going on through July 1. And let's see. Share screen. Give me just a second here while I figure out exactly. Okay. I think, can you see this? Can you see this screen here? Oh, I might need to do some practice with this before I come back to this again. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop screen. Oh, I did get it. Okay, well, all right, I'm going to do it then. Okay, I'm going to do it faster now. All right, so this is my website, writeamustread.com, and you can go here to learn more about the book and some other cool things. So I just want to point out some bonuses that we have for buying one book up to 96 books, and I'm really excited about some of these bonuses. So for buying one book, there's a one book bonus or 3 book bonus. You can enter to win this private 45-minute core message brainstorming session with me. Now, I don't take private clients anymore. I focus primarily on my students. So this is a rare opportunity to get 45 minutes with me, where we'll go over core message and brainstorm and try to nail it by the end of that. And we'll probably get that done, especially if you've done the work in the book beforehand. So you'll get for one book, you'll have 1 entry to win, and for 3 books, 3 entries, and so forth. And what you want to do is just go up here to order now, and then order your book, and then come back to the page and then let us know that you ordered the book just with this simple little form here. So for 1, you'll also get a digital copy of the book, and in addition to your entry for that private session. And I wanted to point out that when you buy 3 books, you'll get a recording of my interview strategies class. I've interviewed more than 1,000 people specifically for books, to get stories for books. And so I teach that process in this recorded class. So if you buy 3 books, you'll get 3 entries, digital, plus this class. And here's one I'm super psyched about. It's when you buy 12 books, you'll get all that other stuff, and then my test drive your content class. And this is so crucial. This is a 4-hour, 8-part class on how to make sure that your content works, so that these strategies, methodologies, frameworks, processes, whatever you're teaching, all your messaging is landing with your ideal reader. And then you can put that in the book with confidence. But more than that, I teach you how to track reader experience, up-level your content with good feedback, how to pull stories, anecdotes, endorsements, everything from the process. It really is just an amazing digital product that I made for my students, which you'll have access to with 12 books. And then with 24 books, which is one case, you'll have all of that, and you'll have access to something that I created because out of great demand, which is a masterclass that we will host on July 13th from 12 to 4, how to use personal story in nonfiction. I am asked this all the time. How much of my personal story should I share? Where do I share it? How do I know how much of me is too much? How do I weave it together with teaching points and research? I teach all of that in this 4-hour masterclass on the 13th. And if you buy 24 books, you have an automatic entry to that class. With 48 books, which is 2 cases, you'll also be able to join my small class, masterclass on core message, where I'll be doing about 20 minutes, half an hour for each person, up to 16 people. And that will be on July 22nd. And again, I don't take private clients. The primary way to work with me is through my workshop. So this is a great opportunity to nail those fundamentals we've been talking about today. And finally, the last one is everything I just talked about, plus a private publishing path strategy session with me, where you can talk about the different options for you and what would make sense for your goals, your book, and your resources. So you can go ahead and go to writeamustread.com to take a look at these bonuses. Okay, so now I want to bring in some wonderful folks. Actually, well, no, we're doing our laser coaching hot seat session with Patricia Bravo. Is that right? Is Patricia here? Yay! Hey!
Hello! This just arrived an hour ago.
Oh, yay! Exciting. Okay, fantastic. So today we're doing a series of laser coaching sessions, about 10 minutes each, where some people who volunteered for this, I'll be coaching them on core message or whatever they want to talk about, intermixed with more panel discussions. So Patricia, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So do you want to talk about core message? Is that your main goal today, or do you have other questions?
My question is a little bit about core, but really more about the organizing structure, because I've got an awful lot of content.
Okay, so in the book, you'll see that I teach a filter method based on 3 things. Who is your reader, and your core message, and what is your promise to them? So what you want to do is use that filter to determine how much content you actually want to include. So is your question, what do I include and what don't I include? Or is it, how do I organize it?
What do I include and what don't I include? That's really the question, because I've got a lot of content and it's too much, and I do need to filter it down.
Well, so did you prepare a reader statement? I sent along just the first couple chapters. So did you prepare one for today?
Yeah.
Okay, so a reader statement for everybody watching is something that's kind of like a Mad Libs, as I walk people through some questions to create a statement that you can easily share with others to say, this is who I'm writing for, with clarity. So let's hear yours, Patricia.
Okay. My reader is a leader in a mid to large size company or Fortune 500 organization that currently has direct responsibility for 1 or more team members. Okay. They have had at least 1 year of leadership experience, ideally 2 to 3.
Okay. Did you do the rest of the reader statement from the exercise? It's okay if you didn't.
I did. Like, what does my reader want?
No, it's at the end of it is maybe you didn't. It's fine. It's the little Mad Libs fill in. So it's, my reader is this, the demographic you did so far, and they want something.
Yes. I have a little bit of that.
Okay. So what does your reader want?
My leader wants to be a good leader and cognitively appreciates the concept of empathy in leadership, but they struggle to implement it while running their business, and their people get left behind.
Okay. And what do you think the real issue is, or the additional issue is?
They cognitively know the importance, but actually doing it, things get in the way. There's lots of things that get in their way.
What would they say
gets in their way?
Yeah. You know it's that, but what would they say?
They would say, I don't know how to put myself in someone else's shoes when they're dramatically different than I am.
Nice.
I I don't enjoy the people side. I got promoted because of my technical expertise.
Okay. So did you work on core message at all?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. It's okay. It's a long process. It's not a long process. It's a thinking process.
Yeah.
So do you want to share any little piece of it?
Sure. Of who I'm writing for, right?
Well, do you have a core message for those people?
No, I've answered your question, but I don't have it down to a singular couple lines.
Just curious. Sometimes people have stuff. So let me just start with readers. So remember, you filter by looking at your reader, core message, and promise. And so the reader, what you want to ask yourself is, does this content, will it help me connect to my reader? So if give me a piece of content you're not sure you want to include in the book.
I have two pieces. One is about how empathy supports decision making and how it also supports problem solving. And I'm not sure if they're too similar.
Oh, decision making and problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nitty gritty question. Yeah. So, okay. So then let me move on to the second part. Then the second part is, will this content help support my core message? And will this content help me deliver on the promise? So you're still working on those other two pieces. But what the question you just asked about, should I include the decision-making stuff and the problem-solving stuff? That falls under the third one, which is, will this help me deliver on the promise?
Okay.
Do they need both?
Do they need both? I think so. I think so.
So what do you think you're promising? Just right now, just take a stab. What do you think your book promises?
To give them an easy, user-friendly way to incorporate empathetic leadership into their day-to-day interactions.
Nice. That is a good promise. Okay. So do they need both decision-making and problem-solving to get to that?
That's the benefit of empathetic leadership. It's one of the benefits is that it will support they're going to get human data, which will support their ability to make more effective decisions and improve their problem solving.
Sure, but do they need both of those pieces of content to get to the promise that you just stated?
Yes.
Okay, then So yes, you need to include both of them.
Okay.
And if you're nervous about it, what I'm hearing you say is, this sounds really similar. And what's underneath that concern of yours is you thinking maybe the reader won't understand why I'm doing both and will think it's being repetitive.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing is doubt in that question.
Yes.
So all you do is get in front of that by introducing those two topics by saying, look, on its face, you might say, why is she talking about problem solving and decision making? But this is why I want to talk to you about both. And this is how they're different. And this is what will benefit you if you read about both. So it's just like, just break the fourth wall and just say, this may seem like repetitive content to you, but I promise you it isn't. And it's really crucial that you read both of these things.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But when you say things like, I don't know if I should include both of these things, it's really your own fear around how will the reader get it.
Yes.
And so then it's your responsibility to make sure they do get it by just telling them why. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Lead with that. That makes sense.
It always do that. This comes up a lot with my students. Well, I'm nervous that they're going to think this. Then I'll say, well, just say that. Just say that. And part of this reason we don't do it is because we think we have to be up here above our readers. And some of it is those inner critic trolls, the imposter syndrome that says, who am I to write this book? And so we feel like we have to be 100% together. But you can just say, you could even say, you might not even think this is splitting hairs.
Yeah.
I think it isn't. So could you just humor me for 2 pages? So you can say things like that, and it actually endears you to your authors who don't want you to be a guru anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So while you're trying to organize your content, Patricia, really refer to those 3 questions. Will this content help me connect to my reader, help support my core message, help me deliver on my promise? All you need is one yes.
Okay.
That's all you need. And it doesn't mean it will ultimately be in the book, but it's enough to organize and know what needs to go in an outline.
That makes sense.
Makes sense?
Fabulous. Yes, that sounds great.
Okay,
Thank
I hope
you.
that was helpful. I really appreciate you joining us today, and I hope you like the book.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay. So let's see. We have another laser hot coaching session hot seat with Lou. Hey, Lou.
Hey, how you doing?
You made it.
I did. I literally just got in from Italy.
I know. I've been following your travels.
Thanks. I put this background up for you so people would think I'm still there.
I'm going to hit you up so you can give me your best tips.
Absolutely. Well, congrats on the book. Mine is waiting for me at home. I'm actually at a bus station right now, but I should be home in a little while. So glad to see you.
Oh, fantastic. So what do you want to talk core message today or something else?
I do have a couple quick questions. In a former life, I was a ghostwriter like you. But when it comes to doing my own stuff, I'm a mess. I'm all over the place. So I have two questions. The first is, can I turn a keynote speech into a book? And you know, I've done the keynote speech stuff with you.
Yes.
And the second question is there a ideal length for a business book these days? Like, you know, I used to write 50, 60,000 word books. I'm just not sure that that's necessary anymore.
So, okay, let me answer that second question. First, let me answer the first question first because it's easy. Yes,
Okay.
you can take
Yes.
a keynote and turn it into a book.
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah. I mean, you could technically take the keynote, turn it into an actual book, 8,000 words,
Mm-hmm.
and be a little baby book. But obviously, you want to develop all those teaching points.
Right.
Yeah. So I know Lou from Heroic Public Speaking, which is an amazing program to develop professional speakers and, speakers in general, and run by Michael and Amy Port, who I adore. And that's where I met Lou. And Lou, tell everybody just a little bit about your keynote because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, my keynote is called Loyalty is the New Currency. And it's based on my childhood growing up in a very mafia-ish neighborhood.
Right.
And I integrate leadership lessons from The Godfather.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just going to say if there's anybody watching this in the comments, you can put if you would pre-order a book like that. That sounds like a book I would want to read for sure. So then you're taking those teaching point moments you have in the keynote and building them out. But you have to be mindful of the structure a little, so it'll be a little different because the experience of reading a book is different than sitting in a seat.
Right.
So the second question was about the length of books.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's no perfect length for a business book. They've definitely gotten shorter.
Yeah, that's right.
Over the years, for sure. If you're going to work with a traditional publisher, they'll have a minimum word count for you.
Mm-hmm.
But that changes. I mean, when I wrote The Pumpkin Plan with Mike, I think did you hear me?
Yep.
I think our minimum was around 85K.
Wow.
And then 2 books ago, it was 60. Or no, 55. And then for the book we just signed a contract for, it was 65. And just,
Yep.
So I think it's more important to think about, just as I was talking to Patricia earlier, the promise that you want to deliver to your reader within the pages. And that's a clear distinction. It's different than with a keynote, right? So with a keynote, it's a promise, as Michael Port teaches, when you adopt a big idea, it's promised you. I teach that in the book, it's a promise that can be delivered within the pages.
Right.
Not someday.
So don't make it artificially long just to hit a word count.
100% no. Instead, think about what do I have to do to get them to the promise? And that's what matters. And the word count will work itself out.
Excellent. Yeah, because the way I'm spinning it from a business standpoint is that my theory is that nobody gives a shit about brands and businesses anymore, and there's no loyalty, no brand loyalty. So I'm trying to tie that back into, what I learned growing up and what I learned from The Godfather, and
The Godfather and from your mafia neighborhood.
Right. Without fear and intimidation, use the good parts of loyalty to create a stronger brand and a stronger business.
I'm psyched for that. Thanks. I think you should write that book.
Well, you were, instrumental in really pointing me in the right direction from the keynote. So I think I'll just try to expand upon that.
Yeah, that would be a gas to read,
Thanks.
Why
Cool.
not? So what other questions do you have about?
The only other question, again, since, it's been years since I did any real ghostwriting, is it still sort of, there was always this stigma of self-publishing. Do you feel like that stigma is still there, or is it legit to be self-published?
No, I think it's legit. There's still some circles where you might have challenges because you're self-published. For example, there's some, depending on where you actually self-publish and your distribution model, you know, it might be harder to get your book in some stores.
Right.
You definitely want to make sure that you have the proper distribution so that libraries can buy you. And so you really have to be careful about the distribution piece and just
Right.
ask those questions and make sure, because you want your book to be accessible. And then there's a few places, you know, some broadcast media, they still only want traditionally published authors. But if you're not worried about getting on the Today Show, then don't worry about it so much. I think credibility is still a big factor for academics and some people in corporate environments. So, you know, it kind of depends on who you are as well. But self-publishing is totally credible and viable, and most people can't tell anymore.
If you do go the traditional publishing route, is there still a need for an agent, or a lot of people self-representing?
I would still try and get an agent, but you know, there are several publishers who have open submissions. So you just have to do your homework.
Right.
Go look at the books that you love, look at who published them, go look and see what their submission requirements are. If it's going to be any big 5 publisher or an imprint of a big 5, you need an agent.
Excellent. Okay. Excellent advice as always. Again, congrats on the book. I'm so excited to get into it.
Thanks, Lou. Thank you for making time on your journey.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay. So we have the next laser coaching hot seat. I'm not sure if Nancy is here yet because we just started early. Is Nancy here yet? She's not. Okay. So I just want to remind everybody that you can go to writeamustread.com and take a look at the bonuses that are available. And something I didn't say in the last time I mentioned bonuses is that they're available through July 1. And the reason is we're treating this book launch as today is the beginning and we go forward over the summer. So you'll have a chance to make these purchases over the summer. If you know somebody who's thinking about writing a book, if you're a coach or a teacher or a consultant, this is a great book for you to pass along to people. Some of my students have found the first 4 chapters of the book so valuable, not just in getting their book development down, but in getting clarity about their messaging for their marketing and their website and even their whole business. So take a look at some of the bonus offers, and then you can decide what works for you. And hopefully join us in July at our 2 events. One of them is the personal story and nonfiction masterclass. That's live with me. They're amazing. And this is something people have asked me to do for a long time. So that'll be July 13th. And then on July 22nd, for up to 16 people, I'm doing deep dive laser coaching on core message. We always end up talking about a bunch of other stuff, but it's for people who have read the first 4 chapters of the book and now want coaching on the work they did in those first 4 chapters. So writeamustread.com to check out the bonuses. So it looks like Nancy's here. Hey, Nancy.
Hi, AJ.
Nancy Hogan. Nancy is a member of my Top 3 Authors Club, which is a writing sprint community. How are you doing, Nancy?
I'm doing well. Thanks, AJ. Thanks for letting me participate. I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. So what are we
congratulations on the book.
Oh, thank you. So what are we talking about today in terms of, you want to talk core message, reader? What do you think?
I thought I'm really happy to talk about core message because I really took the book to heart. But that's probably why I'm having a hard time with the content and the focus is. So I went through today and I did the reader statement and I'm trying to get a core message. So I'd love to work with you on that.
All right, let me hear it. Let's hear your reader statement.
Okay, I have too many words as usual, but I'm writing for highly gifted rebels and mavericks who want to challenge and transform the status quo and create revolutions of flourishing. They want to make a difference in the world, but they don't know how. They're struggling with their purpose and uniqueness and what they have to offer. And they may not realize that they're also dealing with misconceptions about what social activism is. They might fear rejection, being called a traitor to their tribe, or being labeled a misery guts or a misfit. They feel like misfits anyway. And they can't see how they can make a difference because the issues are so vast and complex. And because they're so highly gifted, they don't know where to focus, and there's too many options. And they don't know, and they're passionate about all kinds of issues. They just don't know. And so they just don't do anything.
Okay. So there's a lot of good juice in there. And yes, you definitely want to cut that down so you can easily just rattle it off. One of my students is Carol Mahoney, who has a book on sales coming out next year. And I was so impressed with her the other day because she just said, I'm writing for blah, blah. And she just said the whole reader statement. And the reason the reader statement matters is because, again, we're writing a book for someone. And so we want to clearly articulate who that someone is. When you say to someone, even when they ask you, what's your book about, reframe it and say, my book is for, right? So you don't have to say what it's about. The people who need it really lean into hearing that more than they would about the topic. So work on trying to get that down to the main things. It's all those things might be true, but what's the main issue? Is the main issue that they are feeling overwhelmed? Is the main issue that they're worried about being a misfit? What do you think is the main issue as they would describe it?
I think the main issue is they just don't know that they have anything to offer, and they don't know how to do anything. They're paralyzed because the issues are too big. They're overwhelmed. Okay,
so they're paralyzed because the issues are too big, and they may not realize. Let's cut that last part down too. That what is the main thing that you think they need to know that they don't realize?
That they can make a difference just by being who they are. Like they don't have to change. It can be really fun. They can just they are unique. They have their onlyness. And they don't even know what they have to offer, but it's them.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So a little trick is that last part, the fourth part of the Mad Libs of the reader statement, is a clue for core message. Okay. It's the beginning of core message. I'm sneaky like that, Nancy.
You are. Yes. It's really good though. Thank you.
So let's remember that, and then now let's hear core message.
So the core message that I came up with is, it's possible to live your best life through making a difference in the world without becoming another white savior. Or the other one I wrote, which is better, I think, is just, it's possible to live your best life through making a difference in the world by just being you.
So the white savior piece, it's important that tells me that this book is for white people.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it's for people who think they want to rescue the poor people over there and not realize that it's about co-creation and that they're not the answer, but that that they can co-create, that they can make a difference, but through co-creating, collaborating, cooperating, that they're not the expert.
So that's a different message though.
Yeah.
You're not the expert is not the same, because the other message, I would call it down like this: you don't have to change yourself to change the world. Is the other message. You didn't say it like that, but that's how I would say it. You don't have to change yourself to change the world. Would be a core message. But what you just said is more about how we have to shift away from feeling like we're the expert and become collaborators. That's a different core message, and it shapes the book. So imagine if you wrote the first book, that's about something else. That's about your own maybe insecurities about having to change who you are. The second one is more about getting real with yourself, that you are not the person with all the answers and you need to collaborate.
Yeah.
Those are different books. It doesn't mean you wouldn't. I'm sorry to interrupt, Nancy. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't talk about both things in both books, but one of them has a central foundational truth on whichever, one of that shapes the whole rest of it. What's the main thing?
Okay, so I mean, I think it's more the second that they have to change. They do, I mean, they have something to offer, but they can't, they have to go through a inner transformation themselves to recognize what it is they have to offer, but how to do it in a way that challenges the status quo, which is white male patriarchy, hierarchy. I have the answer, I'm the expert, rather than it being we work together in a community. It's about relationship. It's about the people who suffer injustice know most about their problem, and we have to learn and listen to them, and they need to lead the way, but we can support and be involved, be engaged. But yeah, because it's like changing the status quo and how do people flourish. So it's you have to change your inner
Okay, so they do actually have to change.
They do have to change.
Oh,
Yeah.
did I mishear you in the reader statement? I thought you said you don't have to change who you are.
No, discover who you are. Like, discover what you have to offer. Like, you have something to contribute based on, like, your experience, your values, your gifts and strengths and talents. You do have something, and you do that through doing what you love. That's part of the book, is that it doesn't have to be miserable. It doesn't have to be like you have to suffer, but you can, although you might have to suffer in the inner transformation part. But there is this inner journey that you have to go through to realize you're not, it's a dual thing. It's both and, I think. It's like, part of what I've written is it's fun. It can be joyful. You can co-create in a joyful way, and through what you know, and line up with other people. But it's co-creation. It's not that you're the answer.
Okay, so the co-creation piece is one central theme. That you have to transform yourself in order to transform the world is a different central theme. These are two different main. What do you think is the main? I mean, you can talk about co-creation in a book about personal transformation. You can talk about personal transformation in a book about co-creation. But what's the main thing? Which one of those do you think is the most important and be the biggest game changer for your reader?
I think the biggest game changer is that they can do something. They can make a difference.
Well, that's a truism. So, but you want them to do which of those two that you talked about, the co-creation or the discover your personal discovery, it would be the biggest game changer of those two.
Yeah. Oh, the first. Yeah.
Co-creation?
No. Oh, no. I meant the other one.
Personal discovery?
Yeah, personal discovery.
Okay, it's okay. This isn't easy stuff. But can you imagine now writing a book when you don't have this clear?
Yeah, no, and this is the problem. This is why I thought I've got to jumpstart this process again. I just lost the will to live because I got so bogged down, not knowing where I was headed. So it's kind of like I need to get the core message down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I heard you say is some version of, if you wanted, so we'll flip what I said earlier. If you want to change the world, start with your personal discovery, right? Or if you want to change the world, change yourself. Change yourself sounds hard, and so I like that you use discovery, right? So another way to say it is global transformation depends on personal transformation, or global transformation depends on personal discovery. Right? So that play with that type of core message. And until you leave the co-creation part out of it.
Yeah. Okay. Completely. Can you say it again? Sorry.
Sure.
I got distracted because there's messages coming in.
That's okay. And this will be recorded.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Okay. And maybe someone who's watching will put it in the chat for Nancy so she can copy it. So there's a couple ways to do it. If you want to change the world, start with your own personal discovery. Or global transformation depends on personal transformation, or begins with personal transformation.
I like that one. Global transformation begins with personal transformation.
Okay. Now that's the beginning of a book.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
How does it feel when you hear that? Global transformation begins with personal transformation.
That totally resonates. That is the book. It is. Ta-da!
Okay,
I can't
that's
believe
the
it.
book. 10
You're
minutes.
awesome.
But I
You
mean,
did
it's
it.
10 minutes based on the work you already did from the book.
Yeah, I've done a shed load of work. Plus, I've worked on my personal branding and my mission statement and stuff like that. And he was my client for. I mean, yeah, this book is not a calling card at all. I want it to be a must-read book, and I've been working on it for years.
So do me a favor. Go finish looking at those exercises in the first 4 chapters. Get that developmental work down, and then you will be ready to start moving forward.
Okay.
We're excited
Thank
for
you.
the book, Nancy. We want to hear about it as you make progress.
Okay, well, I'll definitely be coming back to the group. So yeah, I'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. See you soon.
Bye.
Okay, that was Nancy. We have more laser coaching coming up. You can see the value in listening to that. And now 2 of my favorite people are about to join me, Linda Ugolo and Susie DeVille. Yay! So Susie has a book coming out, Buoyant, which will be out is it October? Am I right?
September 6th.
September 6th. I get confused with Gina there. You both have books coming out. And Linda Ugolo has a book out already, Delight in the Limelight, and our very own TikTok star. You can go see her. I've just been watching her videos lately, so I'm a little obsessed. Thank you for showing up, you guys, for this. It really means a lot to me that you would join me today.
It's an honor to be here.
Good. So I wanted to talk to you 2 specifically because I feel that both of you were very dedicated to following the frameworks from the workshop, and you both just dug in and listened and learned and did it, and you still made your book 100% your own. It's not like it's a fill in the blank sort of formula, but I did want to talk about how the frameworks from workshop, which are in the book Write a Must Read, helped you create your own must read. So who would like to go first?
I will.
Okay, Susie.
Well, as you remember, I came to workshop with this gloppy mass of clay that was about 110,000 words. And you helped me through the filtering methodology of understanding who my ideal reader is, getting to my core message, and then the promise of the book. That helped me go into all of this material that I had been researching and writing for 15 years and really cull out what exactly my ideal reader must learn, what they really needed more than anything else. And that drove all of my teaching points, as well as the stories that I chose. And so over the course of many, many drafts, we got to the first iteration of the new manuscript. And it felt as if some wonderful fairy godmother had extracted this giant thorn out of my paw. And I even had a moment. I remember the day I figured out what my core message was and who my ideal reader was. And I was juicing celery and I was standing next to the juicer crying because I was so relieved. And I remembered Martha Beck's comment that you don't cry when you lose hope, you cry when you get it back. So I felt like I could fly because now I had my divining rod. Now I could really craft my book.
Oh, that's magic. Yay. You both actually have that in common, Linda, that you also came with a lot of words that you'd already written. Can you talk a little bit about how the framework helped you complete that book?
I think I was at somewhat of a disadvantage by already having begun before I learned your method. Definitely, if when I write my next book, I'm going to start from the beginning, the way you teach it, because I felt like I was in remedial class for a long time, trying to figure out how to take what I had already and apply it. But I think the most valuable piece was what always thinking about what the reader will need in order to have this transformation. And in what order would that make the most sense? And this was something that I had to ponder hard and often about, because it wasn't always clear. I felt like this was my personal transformation, is how to get myself into the reader's shoe. And I remember you always saying, okay, so now that you've written chapter 4, where are they? And what do they need to know next? I'm going, I don't know. But give me some clues. But eventually it started to, I felt like I started to sink layer and layer into that process of always having the reader's experience in mind. And actually what the biggest surprise for me was how I added a few chapters that weren't necessarily in the original outline, just because I thought, oh my gosh, if someone really wants to feel confident in their speaking, they absolutely need these elements. And yeah, so I think that just always having the dedication and the commitment to follow the process helped me along.
Yeah, I mean, I love watching both of you, where you would have questions, and then towards the end of the process, you would just say to me, well, I took that out because this doesn't actually help them do anything. And I already said that here. And I really need something else about this, because how are they going to get to that and that? And when you start to have those conversations where you're just telling me that stuff, then I know for sure that you've integrated that reader first philosophy, and you're just doing it. I think both of you are, I love that you're both here together, because you both have this very magical quality, and you both are just artists, true artists. And what the challenge is, the people you're writing for aren't where you are, right? So can you speak a little bit about what it's like to really think back? Because Susie, you're off on your wild adventures and you want us all to go on them with you, but your reader is just probably still trying to get through the day.
Right.
So how did thinking about that help you with shaping the book?
Well, you were very helpful in that regard as well, because you kept cautioning me. I think I remember you saying something along the lines of, you're like Merlin. You've got to come back and get your reader. Don't gallop off without them. And so I kept a sticky note next to my computer, and I always prompted myself to remember where I was at the beginning of my journey, not focusing so much on, I've got to make sure I have to get all these teaching points um, in a condensed fashion, and it must sound incredibly lyrical and lovely, and forget that I have to bring them along. I have to walk beside them throughout the entire manuscript. I have to remember exactly where I was during the beginning of what I refer to as my nuclear winter, and start there, because they were not going to be able to take in anything that I have to offer if I start too far down the process. So we really focused on going back to the beginning and bringing folks forward very slowly, as well as addressing all of those doubts, all of those cultural trainings that we have about what creativity is and what it is not. So I try to bring up as many of those things that I would have said at the beginning of my journey and start to chip away at those ingrained beliefs.
Love that, because you're a poet. I mean, you are just, it's just luscious, luscious prose. And
Thank
so,
you.
and your job was more about getting them to that promise and connecting, because you had the prose down. I can't wait for everybody to read your book, Susie. I'm
Thank you.
so proud to have been a part of it. And Linda, you had so many helpful processes. A lot of what you had to decide was how many of the am I going to include? How much is too much? Do they need all of this here? And then remember some of our conversations. I mean, so many of our one-on-ones were about, is this too heavy now? Like, where are they, is this too much right now? How can we lighten this? Do you want to talk about that? Because you have so many effective processes and exercises.
I think what was helpful for me in understanding how to put myself in the shoes of my reader is that I've been coaching in this process before and during the book. So I always had new clients coming in that kind of brought me their beginning point, and I always was very clear on what that was. And I think that, yes, as you said, the idea of how to make this, how to bring some levity to what can be a very deep and emotional process. You know, I know that there'll be people reading my book and they're crying their eyes out.
Mm-hmm.
I just know it. But I want them to feel like, oh, this is really good. This is good stuff, you know? And so I think that my job was to hold the space there and to let them know that this is satisfying. And once you go through it, you're on the other side. And it's not like you're going to get stuck down there. No, and you're going to feel this freedom. So I think that by having the outcome, that island that we're swimming towards be clear in everybody's mind, that it makes it more palatable isn't really the right word, but doable and compelling. And the other piece that I think that I wanted to instill in people is that healing can be creative. And when you're working with creativity, it's satisfying. So that it does make it kind of fun, even if it's kind of heavy at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like your two books would be great companion books.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you're different, but so you have such joy and artistry in what you do. But I want to ask you one more question, Susie. But Linda, did you tell me about some of the readers you've heard from? Because your book's been out for a while.
Oh, it's been really amazing, actually. As you mentioned on page 202 in your book, you have some of my reader comments.
Mm-hmm.
People saying, you grabbed me from the first sentence, or as soon as I read this, I knew I had to read the whole book. As soon as you mentioned, I think a lot of the executives that I work with now, they read that sentence in the book where I say, if you feel like you're supposed to be in a different place around speaking, and this is like your hidden secret that you're afraid and you're nervous, this book is for you. And they're like, yes, please rescue me. Because that's such a hard place. It's a hard place to feel that you're uncomfortable expressing yourself. And so a lot of the comments I get is that feeling of hope that you mentioned earlier today that we want to give to our readers. And not just hope, but like, wow, this is a whole new way of looking at getting over the fear of speaking that I haven't seen. So I think those are the comments that I really appreciate the most, is seeing that people feel like, yes, they're not stuck, it's doable, and that they have a whole new way of going about it that makes them feel like, no, I'm not crazy. Somebody gets me, and they're showing me how to get through it.
Love that. Love that. And Susie, your book is coming out in September. I'd love for you to share the core message. Linda's revealed a lot about her book, and I want to make sure readers know about the core message for your book.
Sure. My core message of the book, which is called Buoyant, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Be Wildly Successful, Creative, and Free, is that to succeed as an entrepreneur and creator, we don't need more discipline, more productivity, better strategies. You need unbridled access to your inspired creativity.
Do you see how Linda's lighting up when she sees that core message? Yeah. So what is it when you share that now in the world? What kind of a response do you get?
Well, I think one of the most gratifying and exciting moments was when I was recently in Provence at Julia Child's former summer home. And I shared it with some folks there who were fellow travelers, as well as people who were there filming a documentary. And so there were lots of different industries represented, lots of different age groups, and everybody really resonated with it and spoke to their own personal experiences. Even if they weren't an entrepreneur, everybody understood how they, in their own way, have a history of maybe white knuckling, trying to get through force and through efforting, rather than creating and working to inspire themselves through art, through nature, through indulging in their passions, and through bringing joy back into their lives. So that was enormously fun and magical to connect with people on that level when I was traveling.
I'm so glad you shared it, and you must feel very confident to be able to just say, this is who it's for, this is my message, this is the promise, just in conversation in Julia Child's kitchen.
Well, and be able to hand them a copy of the advanced reader's copies as they're sitting there thumbing through it and going, oh, this is cool. So it was really exciting and fun.
I'm so jazzed, and I'm so proud of both of you, and I'm grateful to both of you for showing up today to support this book launch and share more about your journey.
Thank you for everything. We love you, AJ, and we can't wait to see your book on every bestseller list there is.
Absolutely. Ditto. Second that.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. So we're going to move on to our next panel, where we're going to be talking about unpacking personal stories. Hey, here's Mara Yale. Yay.
Hi.
There's Trisha Tim. And
Hi.
who else do we have today, Jade, with us? Let's see. Okay, so we have a couple other people that were invited to this who aren't here yet, so they may pop in. But hi, guys. Thanks for showing up and talking about this with me today.
Hi, AJ. So excited to be here.
Me too.
Okay. So, Trisha, you have your book title in your name right there. So Embrace the Power of You. And you want to tell people when your book will be out?
Yes, so my book will be out in March 2023, but I am, done with the manuscript, just getting close to finishing editing, so I'm almost there. So I'm going to have a long runway for marketing, which is something that you taught me, and everybody I talk to in support of my launch says, oh my God, thank you for having such a long runway. Authors usually come so late in the game, so thank you for that advice as well.
Sure. And I want to ask Mara this question next, but can you share a little bit about who is your reader and what is your core message?
Yes. So I'm writing for people who want to belong in the workplace, but they are hiding something about themselves. And may not realize that only by revealing their authentic self will they achieve what they most want. And my core message is belonging begins with self-acceptance.
Nice. Love that. And notice everybody watching how she just, there it is, right there. That was hard one. Mara Yale, thank you for joining. Amara is currently shopping her book, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So Mara's story is in my book, and I'm so proud that it is. It is a tremendous core message So I really want you to share who's your reader and what is your core message.
So my book is for parents who are feeling overwhelmed because they're on a journey that they didn't choose due to a child having an early brain injury or stroke or other neurodevelopmental challenge. And my core message is that parents create the optimal conditions for development.
I love that one so much. I love it so much. So, Amara, I'll start with you. The topic we're talking about right now is unpacking stories. And so in workshop, we talk about, where is there part of the story or a story that needs to be expanded? Breathe a little bit of life into that moment in the story or into the story overall so that the reader can really be immersed in it. And so we can also see how you felt about it and be there with you. So can you talk a little bit about learning to do that in workshop and how that has helped you with the development of your book?
Sure. So AJ teaches that we are our reader, or an earlier version of us is our reader. So I had to go back to almost 13 years ago when my child was first diagnosed as having had a stroke, and remember everything about the intensity of that early medical situation. And really for me, I had to add the emotion. That part didn't come naturally, and AJ drew it out of me and coached me that it was really important to let the reader follow along and feel like they were there moment by moment with me.
Yeah, I distinctly remember this breakthrough you had where you talked about this taxi ride from one hospital to another, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember this exactly right. And it was just a few lines, and then I asked you to unpack that, and that really opened things up. And then you seem to know later just how to unpack that stuff, just where to. Also, you could take a note like unpack, and then you know what to do and what to do with it. But have you shared any of these stories? I think you have, right? I mean, some public speaking and some other places where.
Yeah, I've started to share my stories on social media, but also I've shared my first chapter with some families who are very much in the first stage of this journey. And my first chapter is called "It Will All Be Okay." And so I'm doing what AJ teaches as test driving content, just with that first chapter to get feedback that it is a marathon, not a sprint. And even though you didn't choose the journey, there's a path that's going to make it okay.
So you're getting some good feedback from that first chapter?
Yep.
Oh, good. And I mean, the stories really help people connect, but also process and feel seen and understood, which I think is important in both of your books. Trisha, you have a lot of stories in your book. It's, in my view, it's a memoir, but it's a teaching memoir, is what I would call it. So talk to me about the process of unpacking and how that helped you to zero in on what part of a story to tell and what part of a story to maybe. I mean, sometimes we pass by on the things that we really need to unpack. So can you share about your experience?
Yeah, I think what Mara said was very true. And as you were having that conversation, I remembered one specific instance in our workshop or in your edits to me, where I wrote something along the lines of, I don't know where that little Latina girl went, and you just said more on this. And it was like, wow, it was such a one throwaway sentence. And I had to unpack that and realize oh, when did this happen? How did it happen? What did I feel like? What led to the next thing? And so you made, help me be more vulnerable in my story that is now helping my reader, which is kind of an earlier version of me as well. So yeah, there was just a lot of unpacking. And I think, one of the things you also teach us is your first draft may be a healing draft. I think there was a lot of healing draft material in there for me as well. And definitely some tears shed along the way.
Well, so have you had any feedback from, I mean, I know you went through the feedback process, which I do teach in the book as well. What about some feedback on some of your stories then from
Yeah.
folks?
Yeah, the advanced reader feedback protocol was, I just didn't even realize how valuable it was. I sent it out to, I think, 15 or so people, Mara included. And the feedback was phenomenal, more than I could have imagined. And, I think in the stories themselves, I got feedback from people saying the same thing. They went through the journey, didn't realize the things they were grappling with in their own lives and how they were going to make positive change in their own lives because of the book, and really seeing themselves in their struggles. So it's just, and it also, I think you were talking earlier on the live stream about, our books, deserve to be out in the world. And it also just gave me courage to keep going with the book, because I just saw how it actually impacted people's lives. So I'm really excited to get it out there.
Yay. And Mara, I'm wondering if if you feel like the story part helps you in other communications that you have going on now. So if you have to write something for another purpose, I know you do a lot of speaking. I've seen you posting on social, stories on social. Do you feel like you're better able to pick out, okay, I should probably share more here in this place versus this other place?
Yeah, I feel like I can get to the heart of the matter quicker, and I try to pick vignettes that sort of get somebody right into the connection between their experience and the experience that I'm sharing.
And can you speak a little bit about, in workshop and in the book, we talk about tying story to teaching points, how were able to come up with your stories and align them with teaching points. Can you just share a little bit about that?
So I had a big poster board with all these different colored Post-it notes to keep track of all my stories, because I had tons and tons of stories, mostly from prior writing that was not for a book, but for blog posts and other medium. And I seem to have like an overabundance of stories, and AJ really helped me figure out an outline and a structure where I could hang stories that were relevant and sort of the most relevant to teach the points that I needed to deliver on the promise of my book, which is that by the end of this book, you'll become the guide that your child needs for their unexpected journey. And so going through that filter as well as the core method filter, I really feel like I'm much better. And even now, this current month is a month where I post daily, and I can quite quickly share, in less than a paragraph, a salient story that teaches something.
Yeah, good. I'm just love to hear this, because the stories continue, right? I mean, we have to keep telling stories after the book is out and so forth. So just one last little note about that. I mean, do you feel that there are stories that you wish that you had included in your book that just didn't fit? Either of you want to take that one? That you wish that you could include, but you realized, that's not actually going to serve my reader, or I already told this in another way, but you really did want to include it, and you decided to cut it?
Not really. I think I've included the ones that I think will make the biggest impact. But as I meet more people and hear their story, I mean, there's so many stories out there, and I think, and that's part of the goal of my book, is that we learn from each other through our storytelling. And so I think hopefully this will spark storytelling in corporations and other organizations, so we can learn more from each other.
Amazing. How about you, Mara?
For my readers, sharing story is part of the healing journey of the intended audience, as I think it's true for Trisha as well. And so it's more like there's the long arc of my personal story and my family's story, detailed with, like connect the dot littler stories. And it doesn't matter so much what those littler stories are to the reader, as long as they can see themselves in the whole arc of their story.
Yay!
And I believe AJ taught me that.
Yeah.
This is so gratifying personally, let me tell you. Well, I just adore both of you, and I can't wait for both of your books to be out in the world and doing the good that it's intended to do. And thank you so much for showing up today.
Thank you. Great to see your book in the world.
Bye, guys. So it's 4 o'clock, and we're switching to some laser coaching sessions, which have been pretty fantastic. So I'm excited to do this next one. Is Nicole here? Hey!
Hello.
Hey, Nicole. I always think I'm going to mispronounce your last name. Bianchi.
Bianchi, that's right.
I did it! Okay. So, Nicole, first of all, you have awesome hair.
Oh, thank you. I'm getting ready for a speaking engagement, so I
Okay.
had to get
You're
all the
good.
curls.
You're good. You're ready to go. So I'm really intrigued because Nicole, tell everybody you have a book out,
I
and we have
did.
not worked together on that book, and it's called, if I get this right, Small Brave Moves.
That's right.
And
That's right.
so tell me why you're here for this hot seat. Because you already wrote a book.
Yeah. Well, I'm already thinking about book number 2. So I just celebrated the 1-year anniversary of Small Brave Moves. I love the momentum it's creating. It's exciting, but I'm already knowing the writing process takes some
Yeah.
time. I'm
Yeah.
already thinking about, gosh, which direction do I want to take the next book, and how do I bring next level things to the readers and to my community. So that's what I'm thinking about, and that's why I jumped at the opportunity to get just some quick laser coaching from you.
Okay, yes, ma'am. What do you got for me today?
Well, so my first book's about bravery and leadership and the intersection of that. And so I'm really at this turning point of, do I go deeper on one of the concepts, which is the one that keeps coming up to me from the individuals I coach, which is individuals just struggle, leaders struggle with being brave enough to have tough conversations. So
Okay.
is it a detailed one of maybe one of the concepts or ideas I pitched in the last book? Or is it next level, which is going and getting, some really well-known leaders out there that are exhibiting small, brave moves in action in their daily and bringing their stories into that work so that individuals can recognize, what it looks like in all different shapes and forms. Or is it something, is there a third thing I should be thinking about? I don't know, but I feel stuck.
Okay. Really excellent question. So, I write with Mike Michalowicz, and we're on book 10. But what we always do when we sit down to decide the next book is he usually has about 10 books he wants to do. So the question is always, what do his readers need next? So you have readers now, Nicole.
Yep.
They're their own group. They're their own entity.
Yeah.
What do they need next? So in the conversations you've been having since your book's been out for a year, what's really resonating with them? What did they want more of? What's coming up for them? So what do you seen that they're asking you about more than other things?
I think the how do I put this into action? How do I, so while I talk about the mindsets, behaviors, and habits, and a couple of short moves that they can make at the end of each chapter, I think they're trying to figure out, like, how do I apply this? I need more.
Okay. Could you then take the how-to part? Do you feel excited to do something like that, by the way, to do the how?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Because that's important. I mean, sometimes people want how, and then we just don't want to write the thing because it just doesn't sound exciting to us. So I'm glad that it sounds exciting to you. But you had said earlier you would want to go speak to leaders who are implementing their own small brave moves and showcase them. Why can't you combine the how to with case studies, and then you can specifically get case studies that connect to the specific how to's?
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be huge.
That's really interesting, because I don't think that leaders recognize the moves that the leaders that are making them, they wouldn't call them small, brave moves, right? They would just call them, well, there's an art and a science to it, and understanding what that is could be really fascinating.
Right. And the cool thing is that when you sit down to do an interview with somebody and you're talking in general about small, brave moves, that can be interesting. But if you instead have, let's say, give me one how to, give me one teaching point from the book that you think you want to expand on.
How to talk straight. That's one of the mindsets, behaviors, and habits of brave leaders, is being able to give some straight talk.
Okay. So then let's say you want to talk to this leader and you talk about small, brave moves. But then you know that that person is good at talking straight. So you've chosen them for that purpose. Now you have a deeper conversation that you're having for your case study or your story because it's about talking straight. Yes, you're still talking about small, brave moves and the results of that. But now you're talking about the impact of talking straight, the results that gets, maybe how they were before they realized they needed to do that. Now you have a completely different story that's much more specific and detailed. Plus, the person you're talking to is going to have way more fun talking to you about it.
Yeah.
Because when you have specificity, when you interview someone or have a convo with someone about a specific teaching point versus a general topic, the conversation is richer, more layered, they're more interested in sharing. Then you're going to get all this juice that no one else gets from that person.
I hadn't even thought about the case study. And going deep on one versus going horizontal, but going vertical. That's a really interesting way to think about it. That draws excitement out of me.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Because what you do then is you make a list of the teaching points first.
Okay.
And then you think, okay, who do I know? So when Mike and I sit down and do it, that's what we do. We look at all our teaching points. Which of these do we want to be Mike's stories? Because you'll want to pull from your own life.
Yeah.
And then who do we know that connects to this? Oh, so and so, yeah, they did. This is what they believe, and they did this thing.
Okay.
Now, when you talk to them, you're gonna do a little bit on small brave moves, but it's mostly, hey, I want to talk about this one thing, and you can go super deep. I just think that would be a really rich book that would be super cool to read.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's it. You nailed it. That's exactly. I don't know
Oh,
why
that
I
was
keep
you?
thinking either. I was thinking either or. It's got to be this, or there just wasn't. But I didn't think about combining the case studies and going deep on each one of those that I spent so much time, each one of those principles on developing, right? Generically.
Yes, and I'm thrilled because I know you've been tinkering with this, and I know people love that first book, so now we get book 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
We have a couple more minutes. Do you have any other questions you want to hit me with?
Yeah. So, how do I? Here's the. How do you make the ask of the people, like, to go so much bigger than yourself? How do you make the ask to get some big names into the book for something like this? That gives me anxiety.
Oh, okay. Oh, so much. So I did that. So you do you know that one of my heroes is Stephen Pressfield? I wrote about him in my book.
No, that's awesome.
So and he actually endorsed my book.
Oh,
So talk about scary. But I first went to him for an interview.
okay.
So what I did was I had a personal connection, right? So I thought of how he personally affected me. So I wrote something kind of funny. Funny is always good, by the way, about something that an impact he had on me. And I
Yeah.
asked him, could I interview him about something specific? I didn't say, can I just interview you? I said, I really want to talk to you about the part of the hero's journey where we talk about the epiphany. I have
Yeah.
questions about the epiphany. Well, that piqued his interest. He's like, what kind of questions does she have about the epiphany? And then he said, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So just get a personal connection, send an email, just go straight to their email. Don't even, I mean, if you know someone who knows them, then they can do an intro.
Yeah.
But I just wrote a heartfelt email that said, your books mean a lot to me, and this is why I really want to interview you for my book, and I'd be upfront about it. It's for a book.
Yeah.
I specifically want to talk to you about this, and I just need 20 minutes of your time.
Yeah.
Then, Nicole, I always book, like, I plan for half hour or 40 in case it goes long.
Yeah.
And then if you talk in specificity like that, they love the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then honestly, you'll begin a relationship with them immediately.
Yeah.
So do that specificity, and you'll be shocked how many people. I've never had anybody turn me down. And that's just because I say, I really want to talk about this specific thing. This is what my book is for and the message, but I really want to hit you up on this.
Yeah. I like how what you're telling me is clear, concise, and it's not an absorbent amount of time. You make it hard to say no, right? In your ask is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, 20 minutes, easy peasy.
Oh,
Anything that I use, I'll run by you for your approval.
yeah.
Then all their questions are answered, right from the get.
Yeah.
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 But I'm going to tell you the secret to those things, Nicole, is having a conversation with someone who's notable that they've never had before. They will remember you and they want to keep talking because they're used to answering the same stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Thank you so
You're
much.
so welcome. Good luck with your talk.
Thank you. Have an amazing launch day. I am cheering you on.
Thank you, Nicole. See you soon.
Bye.
Okay, so we have our next laser coaching. Let's see it's Angela. Hey, Angela.
Hi.
I haven't seen you since Vancouver.
Oh my gosh, pre-pandemic, you were one of the first people I told about my book concept, which is now my podcast, so I'd love to talk to you.
Okay,
So excited
awesome.
for you.
Thank you so much. So what are we talking about today? What is it you want to get some feedback on?
Yeah, well, we talked about the power of the only, right? My whole concept of that I've always been an only. I'm a media and communication coach. How do you own your voice? How do you own your power? How do you show up better? So it's kind of like tying that, but in a more of a transformational book about how can everyone step up into their power of the only. What happened is I was just playing with the ideas. I have so much content and ideas for the past 2.5 years. I didn't launch that podcast. It's a podcast about leaders breaking through barriers, defying the odds, and creating positive change. And it's really been a series of interviews of people who have felt like the only, whether they were the only woman, whether they were the only person with that movement, or things that I feel people needed. And so I have a collection of interviews. I think I'm at episode number 62 or 62 right now. And so with my book, I've just been waiting because it's my first book and I didn't want to just write a how-to book or an ebook. And so I've just been waiting and waiting. And I spent 2.5 years gathering interviews, growing, learning, but I don't really have my core audience. I don't, so I feel like I have so much content. I know where I want to go. I cry thinking about some of the content I want to put out and who I want to impact, but I feel like I'm trying to serve a lot of people and I don't have that laser focus. And I feel like that will help me put me on the right track. And that's why I haven't dived into doing the book yet. I knew that I would sit down and do these exercises before I started writing the official book, even though I have lots of content and stories already.
Well, so you have a lot, you're ready to go. You just need to get that clarity because you have so much content and you've explored this topic with so many people.
Yes.
I mean, it's once you get it going, you're going to be just cruising.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it. I just keep tabling it because I'm like, I want to do it right. I don't want to just start writing. I'm like, no, I got to sit down and get really clear. What do I want to do? What do I want to serve? And this is just when I saw that you're doing the laser coaching, it'll really get me like accountable now. Right. And then I'm going to continue to do the work.
Okay. So important to remember about readership is you can be writing to a lot of people as long as what they have in common is hearts and minds. So tell me a little bit more about who you think you might be reading.
I did the exercise so I can read it to you and see if I went all over the place or if it's more trying to copy my blog. I said, I'm writing for someone who may have always felt like an only, but feels called to something bigger or to their next level work, who wants to feel inspired, supported, and have an actionable roadmap to step fully into their voice and their power and thrive in all parts of their life. But they're struggling with confidence, with clarity, with putting themselves out there in a bigger way, and may not realize that what they're also dealing with is the deeper inner barriers that are not necessarily their fault. So I'm kind of like a business / motivational / it's really about personal transformation book. I want the people that read my book to thrive in all parts of their life.
Okay, read the very first part of the statement again to me. Just the first answer.
Oh, I'm writing for someone who may have always felt like an only, but feels called to something bigger or to their next level work.
Okay. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
And so it's two types. It's not two types of people. It could be someone who is starting out and feels like an only, and I don't have the confidence. I don't know how to speak up. I don't even know what to do. All my clients come to me. I want to give a speech. I want to put my message out there. I don't have those skills. But on a higher level, there's higher level people who've already successful, right? They've already done the work, but they keep hitting this roadblock. Maybe it's more of a legacy play. Like, no, what am I going to contribute? And they may have lost kind of, you know, they've been successful, they hit all the markers, but they're not truly stepping into their only because of maybe other stuff they're dealing with in the background, right? There's a lot of stuff I went in my blog about, you know, there's power in being the only. It's not your greatest weakness, it's your greatest strength is really where I go from that, right? Successful women, successful men, they've reached their top, they've gathered all the awards, and then they realize, you know, I've been faking it, or I've been trying to fit into a mold, or I haven't dealt with my deep cultural issues. So stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, that's where I get lost. It's kind of like somebody could just want to be the only, like they're the only and they want to step out. And some people have already conquered some of that, but they still want to reach that next level work.
So I think that it is important for you to have that, that part nailed, that what is, because it's different if it's somebody who wants to be the only versus somebody who's afraid to be the only. That's a really distinctive difference, and that's a different type of book. So it changes the way, it's harder to write to both of those groups.
Okay, so someone who wants to be the only versus someone who's scared to be the only?
Or someone who's maybe not seen the power of it. Let's just put it like that, right? Maybe someone who's avoided it.
But I feel like it's somebody who's called to it. So I don't want to write necessarily a 101 book, but I don't want to write so high level that it's kind of beyond, I want it to reach enough people, right?
Okay, so it's people who are called to be the only.
Yes, or they've been the only, and well, it's kind of feel like some people are always the only, but they don't, I want them to flip and see the power of it, that they've had it all along. And some people feel like they're not the only, but they're ready to take that next step. You know, the women that I've interviewed already see power in the only, and the men that I've interviewed, they've already become that, but they had a process that they went through, and that's the stories I've been gathering. What made you step out and be okay with being the only and still going for it? You know, like, why did I go keep doing what I'm doing, even though I have these cultural barriers, even though I had, what were the things that help unlock it for people?
So I think then your reader is somebody who doesn't see it yet, right? So they need to they haven't quite grasped the power of being the only yet. So it's, you know, there's a difference if it's somebody who's already knows the power of it because they're called to be the only, versus somebody who's succeeding or wants to succeed, and being an only is a friction point. Feels like a barrier.
I guess I'm stuck as to which do you feel like I'm drawn to more? I'm kind of lost in my own head as to who I want to serve, because I think I serve both depending on what they're doing.
Well, so, you know, we end up with a peripheral audience. So we start with our core audience, and then other people read it, and they become your peripheral audience. So I think it's really more about what is the transformation. Let's look at this a different perspective. What transformation do you hope to provide?
I want people to step into their greatest power and do the work that I can't do to heal the world. Really.
Okay.
As a coach, you know, a communications coach, and everyone, I love the work. I'm drawn to people who do amazing work, and they don't see the brilliance in themselves sometimes, and they're afraid to go to that next step, be on TV, do the speeches, do the things, put them out there in a bigger way, and they just need to be unlocked, but also to find fulfillment in it, right? Those overachiever types, they can always go through, but they hit that roadblock later on. It's like, wait, I've got all the awards, I've done all the stuff, but I'm actually not fulfilled. They can't do their next level work if they're not thriving. So it's kind of like, I really want to unlock the greatness. So I'm not a beginner, but I don't want to be too high level, but that inner transformation, those inner barriers to unlock so that people can put their brilliant work out into the world.
So it sounds like your reader is someone who isn't only and is afraid to step into their brilliance.
Yes, or they forgot it, or they're
even just
overcome.
feels like an only.
Huh?
Maybe they just feel like an only. They are an only, or they feel like an only.
Yes, they feel like an only, or like the only one that thinks this way, right? I want to, these past couple years, it's kind of like whenever I see someone doing something, I'm like, they are an only. Like, that's who I call to my interviews. I don't even take that many pitches. I'm like you're trying to change the publishing industry.
Yep.
Right? So it's not an only, like the only woman at work. It's like the only one thinking away. Why changing the status quo? Why is this not happening? But maybe, you know, like this is your first book. Why were you not writing it before? Right? So I want to awaken the people who think like an only, but maybe, you know, they are meant for bigger things and they've always felt it, but there's that thing that's stopping them, whether it's their internal barriers, the way they were raised, being a woman, being a man, being a person that's the only person in the, whatever it is, but it's not a type, it's not like just women or just an Asian woman or just a, you know, person with a vague concept. It's kind of a feeling or a type of person that wants to create change.
Okay. So I think the main, okay, so it's just about that. What I'm hearing you say is that it's people who aren't ready to fully step into their brilliance. So they are people who, it sounds like they're change agents, or they're either the only person, maybe the way to say it is the only person or the only voice, because
Okay.
the voice piece covers somebody like me.
Yes. Okay.
Right? So, or you could just say voice and a person would infer it, but I wouldn't want to diminish, you know, the only person of color, the only this, the only that, right? So,
yes, because that is a big part of it. That is core audience, but it's not, I'm not writing a book for women of color.
right.
That's not where I don't want to get that focused.
So I'm writing for people who are the only person or the only voice in their industry or community, however you want to place it, and who are nervous to take to step fully into their brilliance. And then the rest of it you had. I feel like that's your person. And then the legacy piece and the people who are already doing it, I think it's maybe for later in your book, but you're not really writing it for them. Like they're still
don't get too high level yet, right?
Yes.
Like kind of get the nuggets at the end.
Well, I mean, you can still weave their stories in later, but I think you have to have that clarity of the audience. It has to be crystal. That it's people that the only person or the only voice who haven't yet taken the full step into their brilliance. Maybe not nervous, but like who haven't yet fully stepped into their brilliance. That person's going to identify themselves. If you say that, if you try that, even if you leave the rest of it out, see how many people say that's me.
Okay, and I've done that a little bit with my podcast, and then now I'm just I know I'm running out of time, but more just I haven't decided if it's like how much of me to put in it. I have all these stories as well, and then also if I wanted interactive, right, like kind of a soulful interactive workbook at the end. Like think of these questions. Like each step has I said it's your greatest strength versus a weakness, kind of like how we could flip something from a weakness to a strength, right? Like overachieving is or feeling like it actually was a coping mechanism, I think, for me, right? To be successful, whatever. And then it became my strength, but it actually can become a weakness too. So kind of like an interactive, I don't know, with stories and.
Well, all of that you can sort once you have this nailed down with core message and promise, and then it's just then that becomes your filter. So maybe you will have questions at the end, or maybe you'll feel like you don't need it because you can get them to the promise without it. But all of that you can sort when you have these foundational pieces. Because just knowing, someone who hasn't yet stepped into their brilliance, that actually shapes the content.
Yeah, and it's someone that wants to, because some people don't want to step into their brilliance. It's kind of like that subset audience of like, no, they don't. I don't even want to put my message out there. So then that wouldn't be my reader, right?
I really just hope you're going to get going now. That's what I hope. Get it going.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll do the rest of your exercises. So congratulations on your book. I'm so glad to support you.
Thank you. I think about your book idea often, actually, over the years. So it's time. Put it out.
And I'm going to devote some time, and then I'll probably reach out to you and look at all the workshops and different things you offer. And so we'll talk again.
Well, all right. Enjoy. Thank you, Angela.
Bye.
Bye. So now we're going to talk about something that I'm really jazzed to talk about, which is the book you really want to write. And we have Francesca here and Mary Tass.
Hi.
Hi, friends. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Where are you, Francesca?
I am in Philly. I just finished a digital marketing summit. So I'm in a hotel in the hallway during the reception hour or whatever,
Nice.
trying to find some quiet space.
Thank you for doing that. Hey, Mary Tess.
Hello, it's so good to see you both. I'm so happy. I'm like, yay, what a fun birthday party. It's like the best.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. So I wanted to talk to both of you because you both switched gears with the book you initially came in to workshop to write, and then you decided to write this other book that was truly on your heart. So that's what we're talking about for the next few minutes. So Mary Tess, you initially wanted to write a book that was on visibility for people in the corporate sector and how to raise their visibility, yes?
Yes. Yes. It's what I knew.
What?
I said it's what I knew.
It's what you knew.
Yeah.
And you kept struggling with the outline and redoing it and rethinking it. I think Francesca probably says, this sounds familiar. And then talk to me a little bit about, when you realized I don't actually want to write that book.
Yes. So we kept working on the core message, and it was so funny because, we probably spent more time on the core message than in the awesome workshop that you give, the 16 weeks that we had. It was like probably 7 or 8 of those weeks. I felt like, is this core message it yet? And so that conversation kept happening because I kept trying to integrate into appreciation. What I really wanted people was to feel appreciation. But you were like, well, I don't understand how increased confidence and visibility leads to appreciation. How are you making that leap? And I was like, no, it definitely can happen. But I couldn't articulate it. It was just this feeling that I had. And I kept going no, I feel like that's what they need, but I wasn't sure how to get there. And then the light bulb really clicked for me when you said, and I was like, well, I kept going well, I could easily write this book about confidence and visibility. And that made sense. But you said okay, so do you want to spend the rest, the next several years having meetings talking about that? And I was like, oh God, no, I'll be bored to tears. No, that is what I know. And that was awesome. And I'm glad I have that experience, but I certainly moving forward, no, I want to attract a different group of people that have that. And they also want to feel appreciated in ways that matter most. And then you were like, okay, that's it. And so it was just it was a cool aha awakening, I think, for both of us. But yeah, it felt right, even though logically I didn't have the words for it.
I think sometimes we excel in one area and we're known in one area, we're an expert in one area. And so we think, okay, I better write my book about that. And then we're just bored. Yeah. Or the prospect of, talking about it for years just bores us. So what did it feel like when you finally settled on the book Heart Value?
No, it felt amazing, still scary because again, that was new territory for me. So I'd spent all of my, decades of corporate experience leading with logic and leading with my head and strategic planning. And that's what made me successful. So then now I'm going into this new world of book writing and publishing. So I don't know anything about it. And then I'm going to talk about, heart-centered strategies to actually connect and feel appreciated in ways that matter. I was like, whoa, so it felt right. I knew it was what I needed to do, but I also knew this was uncharted territory and I have no idea how people are going to respond to it.
Well, we're so glad you did. And can you just briefly, and here's Indrani too. She's joining us. Yay. And Mary Tess, can you just briefly share also who you're writing for in your book and the core message?
Yeah. So Heart Value is for people who feel disconnected from the value that they shared. And the core message is you deserve to feel energetically and emotionally connected to the value that you offer. It's your choice. So go after it.
And we're so proud of you. Such a good book. Everybody needs to get that book, Heart Value. Indrani, I'm going to get to you in just a moment. And Francesca's standing in a hallway. So Francesca, you actually had a couple book ideas. Do you remember all of them?
No, I'm so impressed with Mary Tess's memory because I'm like, oh, I don't remember any of this process part because I do remember there was a part where I wanted to write about being weird and the kind of alienation, acceptance aspects of feeling like the weirdo, being the weirdo, and then embracing it and using that as an empowerment piece. I don't remember much else though.
Yeah, you had different iterations of that book, and I think we must have done 4 or 5, maybe 4 outlining sessions, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And you kept trying in earnest, and it just wasn't clicking for you. Can you talk about what was happening for you there and what led you to the book you're currently working on?
I think what was happening was I was going really broad, trying to speak to, like, not even thinking about commercial success or anybody or anything like that. But when I was thinking about my reader, and reader first, I wanted to help as many readers. And I really looked at, like, how I was feeling that other people could feel, something that was maybe more relatable than a very specific story that I wanted to tell. And when I let go of, I think, the self-consciousness of being a little too, I guess, self-centered in the writing, and I saw that there was a value in what I could give a reader from a more honest and specific point of view, then I could let go of weird and being like, and get to the core, or like the root of the weirdness, and the things that actually made me feel alienated or different, and talking about that in a completely different way. And it also just kind of let me, I guess, broach grief without feeling anchored to writing a sad book. I think that's really what I was trying to avoid. Was I didn't want to write a sad book, but I had some sad stuff to talk about.
Yeah, so you knew you wanted to write this book, so you want to explain a little bit about the book you're currently writing on, who it's for, and it's also just it's a little different than the books we've been talking about today in terms of structure and focus. So if you just want to share a little bit about it.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I'm writing a memoir in essay format. So the essays are nonlinear chronologically, but are connected thematically. And it is about my life and my conjoined twins' life and her death. And so who I'm writing for is fellow lucky ones, because I was the lucky twin, the one that was born fully abled without a disability, the one who survived and is still living. And so my book is for fellow lucky ones, which I categorize, or I define, as anyone who has struggled with the weight of grief, survivor's guilt, and is looking to share or lighten the burden and process and accept this intersection of trauma, loss, and fortune. And so really the core message that I'm sharing is that the acceptance stage of grief is not a hole to fill. That's not what grief is. It's actually just about having a dark spot and then putting a little light on it. So it's more personal than, I guess, a lot of other books that you were talking about today.
Yeah, but what did, and I'm glad Andrani's here too to piggyback off on that, because this is actually working out just great that you're all here together. Tell me how it felt like when you finally said, okay, I surrender. I'm going to write the book that I was avoiding writing.
It got a lot easier, and I could start seeing, and you really helped me with this and guiding me in that all of the frustrations that inevitably come with writing and not being perfect out the gate is that it's really about the process, and then calling that my process, and being able to draft something, knowing I had something important to say that only I could say, that I could communicate clearly, that could actually reach people that I know probably aren't being reached in a similar way. And so it unlocked something, and it let me play, which I'm really big on, and it let me experiment and explore. And so and not get so hung up on planning, because I think planning is a real bottleneck for me. I need to kind of create a mess, and then I can clean it up. And then something really wonderful hopefully comes from that.
You say create a mess, but you do actually have teaching points, a core message. You know who your reader is, and that's those are your those are your bumpers, your bowling alley bumpers, that are keeping you,
Yes.
so you can make a mess within there.
Yes.
But you know you're not way off.
And the original, when I kept trying to write the other books, I was like, the guardrails kept moving. And so it's like my lanes were too wide and it was too much. And so this really, I needed some structure, but not too much. And I think that's exactly what I have now with the one that I'm supposed to write.
Awesome. Awesome. So Indrani, thank you. I know you had trouble getting on and I'm so sorry you were stressed about it.
I'm on my phone. I'm holding the phone, but I'm on, and I have a mic and a camera, and I'm grateful.
Well, we're so glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thank
And
you.
so it's interesting because I wanted to have you on to talk about Unpacking Story. You have, and there's a little mention of you in Unpacking Story in my book, and in fact, it's a piece of it's in the editing pass method, and one of my editors highlighted that part of the story, and they were kind of stunned by that little piece of information that I shared about your own journey of unpacking stories. But I do actually want to talk about then writing the book you want to write, because you sat down and kind of just wrote this linear memoir initially that you brought with to workshop, and then has evolved into a teaching memoir that's extremely powerful in a way that before it was this kind of some stories and sequence of events. So can you share a little bit about recommitting to the book so that it's this book that you really want to write?
So AJ, first I have to say that I could not have arrived at the moment of recommitment if I didn't have you to help me find the bumper guards. And originally I thought a memoir was just, you say, I had an apple and then I had milk and that was it. And so finding the book that I didn't really want to write, but that I needed to write was a long journey. And I have to tell people it's more than a long time that I want to say. But you kept bringing me back to this is what we need in the world. And I didn't know that I had teaching points. I thought, well, I got over this and then I got over that. And you kept prodding. How did you do it? Show me how to do it. If this was a movie, what would the director see? And it was trying to answer all of those questions as you brought them that finally made a little bit more sense. And I have to say, everyone has to go to retreat.
She's talking about editing retreat, which I do for my workshop students. And unfortunately, I can't put retreat in the book. It's pretty hard to do that.
I know. I'm just a plug for retreat. Everyone join a class and go to retreat.
So Indrani, just following up on that, can you share with everybody who is your reader and what is your core message?
My reader is primarily a woman who has or is experiencing domestic violence, has left or wants to leave, and she wants to answer the question like, am I worthy? Can I do this? Is it possible? Can I find joy? Is happiness even a thing? And AJ, I know that you know that there was a time when I thought happiness was not real. It was something that somebody made up. But through writing and helping me unpack the stories, I came up with teaching points on how to find happiness and joy. So that's it. It's for the woman who just wants to shine as best as she can, as bright as she can, and there's no definition of that shine. Just do what you can do in the moment.
I love the varied stories that you all bring to the table, and one of the things I love so much about workshop is how we all want to read each other's books, even when we don't, maybe aren't even the ideal reader, and we start to fall in love with all of these stories. And I'm so excited that Mary Tass's book is in the world and you can buy it, and that Indrani and Francesca's memoirs will be in the world. I'm absolutely certain of it, 100%. And I'm so thankful to all of you for being willing to come and talk about this, and also for writing the book that's truly on your heart, and for not following the practical path, because what reader wants to read that? No one wants to read this compromise that you wrote. So
Right.
I love that you are all committed to that, and that's what you're doing or what you have done. And I'm really grateful for you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank
They
you
are
for
grateful
teaching
for
us.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for writing it. Thank you for teaching us.
Yes.
Take care, everyone. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks, Mary. So now we have a laser coaching session. One more of these. We have a couple more later. But right now we have Sarah. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. Pronounce your last name for me.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's Schley. There aren't enough vowels in there, but it's
Schley. What's
Schley.
the origin of Schley?
It's a German name. It's got old spelling. It would have an I on the end these days.
Yeah, I am also of German descent. So
yeah, so I'm a mix. I've got a couple things going on, but
So Sarah, what are we talking about today? What can I help you with?
So, I'm so excited to have your book finally released out in the world, and I'm looking forward to working through it. I have been noodling on a book proposal idea for I don't know how long. And I've shopped it around to a couple of publishers, and so far no luck. So I guess if there's anything in my messaging that you can help amplify or clarify or stuff like that.
So did you do any of the exercises that I sent along in advance?
I did. Yes, I worked through the reader profile, and I've done some other stuff too. So
okay, so tell me your reader statement as it stands right now.
Sure, I'm looking off to the screen because that's where the files are. So my reader statement, and you want the statement, not the individual pieces. So I'm writing for college and university teaching faculty.
Okay.
Who are interested in meeting the diverse learning needs of their students. And by diverse, I mean lots of things. My experience is primarily with students with disabilities, but some of these things work for any kind of diversity. When there's different communication happening in the classroom, how are you going to do this? So, but they're struggling with offering the flexibility for these students while maintaining rigor and fairness across students.
Say that last part one more time.
Yes. So they're struggling with some of the requests for flexibility in the classroom.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
While also trying to maintain a common experience for all students, or at least an equitable experience across all students, fairness, and sometimes they're also concerned with rigor in that mix, that if they're flexible, it's by definition not going to be as rigorous. Anyway, they may also not realize that they're dealing with misguided assumptions about fairness and rigor. But anyway, that's an aside. So they also may not realize that there are many solutions out there that are not a heavy lift and that are pretty easy and that are not going to be too hard for them to implement and are not going to drive themselves nuts in the process.
Okay, cool. All right. That's really, really clear. I got that. Okay. And then did you tinker with core message at all?
Not yet. Yeah.
It's actually really daunting. I don't promise that it's easy. So what's the messaging? So you're getting stuck with first of all, let me just honor you for putting your proposal out, because honestly, that most people don't do it, or they give up too soon. So you've probably read many BuzzFeed articles or other articles about all sorts of books that were rejected 85 million times. Right. So all that matters is that you keep submitting. So have you had any positive feedback from anyone where they say this isn't quite right? Or
what I've had is positive feedback. This book needs to be out there. We already have a couple of things in our catalog that overlap this. So It needs to be out there. It's not right for us at this time. So keep going, but not here is the message I'm getting.
So if you're hearing that, have you heard that more than once, that we already have something?
No, just once.
Okay, right. Because in publishing, you never want to listen to just one point of view.
Right.
Okay. All right. Because if you had heard that from multiple people, then I would say there's a specificity in your messaging that's probably buried in your book that you have not articulated, that shows how your point of view is different.
Okay.
That would be my guess, is that you're generalizing it and it's not specific enough.
Yeah.
So what, have you received any other feedback, or is it mostly just
I've talked with two presses. The other one I was getting some messaging that it would be, they're asking questions that really didn't ring true to me. Like one of the questions was, what about the parents of your students that you're talking about? And I'm like, I'm talking about college students. Faculty and college students, parents aren't part of the picture as far as faculty are concerned. so I made the decision that was probably not the right press, or at least with that particular editor. So
okay. So you've only submitted it twice. Okay, all right. You have got to submit it more times.
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you to get everything ready. Once you're done with changing things up, I want you to get everything ready, and then I want you to take a couple hour block of time, and I want you to try and submit 10 different places. Just go bing, bang, boom, 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 boom.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Just set that intention, because we can't just do one unless they have an exclusivity requirement and submission requirements.
Okay.
So sometimes they'll say, please don't submit anywhere else, and you should honor that. But it's better to just hold your breath.
Right. I was taking the approach of trying to get input from them before I worked out the whole thing. But I have it pretty well worked out, but I wanted to fine tune it for them in particular. But I will back up and make it.
You always want to put your best proposal forward.
Right.
For sure. And then they're still going to want you to fine tune things, because that's how this is.
Right.
That's how this business is. It sounds like you probably have, and I don't know enough about it, but I'm guessing that there's a core message that is something that only you know. So in the book, I mention, some series of questions you can answer that will guide you to it. Really be thinking about, I wish they would stop doing this, or I wish they would start doing this, or if they only knew this, or I really don't agree with this conventional wisdom, because therein lies the core message that really says, hey, hello, y'all don't realize this, and we can make this change. But right now it seems like the book is probably sounding like other books.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I say probably with an asterisk, because 2 is not a good sample size.
Okay.
But if you start to hear similar things, it's probably because they are mistakenly thinking your book is like other books. So that's a big part of the process of drafting a great proposal, is showing how your book fills a need in a marketplace. And so you have to differentiate it.
Okay.
So I'm going to encourage you to really, really do those early exercises in the book with core message and promise, because I'll bet that that's where it's probably hitching.
I suspect I'm also trying to broaden too much to make it less of a niche thing, if that makes sense. Like, I know a lot about students with disabilities. It applies, I think, to lots of other kinds of diversity, but in that broadening, it loses the sharpness of.
I don't think I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about other marginalization that needs to be addressed. No, I think that's actually a good thing for you to do.
Okay.
But maybe it's college and university professors, but other people who are in adult learning. So it's not just college and university.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about, there's another component of people who are teaching adults in online learning environments. And like I teach adults in an online learning environment, and how you might be able to expand beyond just the college and university level. And this is a massive, huge market of people who now teach.
Yep.
And who weren't trained to be teachers, and maybe need to figure out how to deal with this.
Right.
You know, have you thought about that?
Yep. I have not put that together. I mean, but that makes total sense. I that grokks. So yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's a huge market that's probably really needed.
Yeah.
Really needed.
I mean, frankly, university faculty are also not taught how to teach, but that's a whole nother issue.
So not going. Yeah. So please do that early work.
I will do.
That is probably where the hitch is happening.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. So now we're going to move on to another panel. And we've got about half an hour left, everybody. Thanks for sticking with if you're still around. And thank you for joining if you're just here. So we're going to be talking more about becoming more confident in authorship. And we have a number of my workshop students here. There's Tatiana. Hey, Tatiana. There's Liz. Hey, Liz. And Liz's chair. Hey, Liz. Hey, Liz. Who else do we have? Gina. Oh, I think Gina's got some technical issues. Gina, there's Gina. And let's see. I think we're maybe going to have Casey, but I don't know if she's able to make it. Oh, there's Casey. Nice glasses. Are they new?
Hey. Now.
They look great.
Thanks.
So welcome to everybody. It looks like Gina's working on technical issues. So thank you for joining. I wanted to talk with all of you specifically because in workshop, I feel that you really gained confidence as being an author through the process. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Tatiana, your book is Dream Bold, Start Smart. And can you share a little bit about, the process how over the course of writing it and editing it and then publishing it, you gained confidence as an author?
So, first of all, I had great support, but everybody here has had an opportunity to work through the workshop and really get your support. But I think that what really changed it for me was you telling me and telling us, all of us, that writing a book is a craft. And I really struggled with it at the beginning. I didn't understand what that meant, meaning I couldn't really connect at first what that means for me, because a craft is a craft, something you make with your hands. But then at the same time, through the course of the workshop, I learned how, by just learning a system that works, you can write a good book, even if you're not a native English speaker, even if you never thought you're a writer, never considered yourself an author. And
those are all you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So as I worked through this process and as I learned the system, as I learned the steps to take, it gave me confidence, not only the confidence that I thought, okay, I know I can do it, but also in everyday steps that I made, because I knew that, for me, it's important to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I knew that at the end of the tunnel, there is that book published, there's this published author status, but which is not why I wrote the book, but that's something, so a goal. But in the book writing process, that light at the end of the tunnel was kind of far away. And so what really helped me keep going and keep working through it and gave me confidence that I could do it was learning the steps, the writing sprints, the core message, core promise. And those things actually, the core message and the core promise, the ideal reader, were the things that really were for the book that light at the end of the tunnel for me. So as I was encountering imposter syndrome and other things, I always thought, okay, who am I writing for? What is the message that I want to share? And that really helped me craft the skeleton of the book and also the entire book. And then as I was working through the edit process, first of all, I sort of hated the fact that I had to read my own work 100 times. But also it was
sort of a great part of the process because you really got to know your own writing and also got to know how to write better. I thought that this was really empowering for me. And even though I had an editor after you've gone through the first round of edits for my book, he's also preserved my voice in the book. So it wasn't necessarily him changing how I write. And I know that my writing is not necessarily perfect because I'm still not a native English speaker, but at the same time, I feel much more confident to take on the next book as a journey, and also know that at the end of that tunnel, there is something that feels really good. And just today, I got an email from a person I haven't spoken to in 3 years, and the subject of the email was, "I loved your book."
Oh, yay!
And this was just for me was the best part of this process.
Awesome. Thank you, Tatiana. Liz, I wanted to ask you about this because you have a book coming out. You want to share the title of your book and when it will be available?
Thanks, AJ. My book right now, the working title is Victim Town, An Unavoidable Destination and the Gifts It Offers. Nice. It's poised to be available early 23. I haven't gone through the titling process, so there's a chance that may change.
So share a little bit, Liz, if you would, about how your confidence as a writer, as an author, grew in the process of working through the frameworks that I share in Write a Must Read.
So much, AJ. I really need a detailed plan and structure. I'm a great executor if I have a good plan. And your plan and your reader first focus was everything I needed and more. It was the structure and the accountability. And you specifically helped me find my voice. I've never written a book before. I had zero confidence when I started. And you provided an atmosphere that made me feel safe to submit my work to your live edits. And I learned so much. And yeah, my confidence came from your whole program and from your heart and your personality.
Oh, thank you, Liz. I'm just love seeing you blossom. Your writing is what you were meant to do, for sure.
Thank you, AJ.
Gina, hi, Gina.
Hello.
So, Gina, tell everybody the title of your book and when it will be available.
It's Leading Inclusion, Drive Change That Employees Can See and Feel, and it's available October 11th, but of course, available now in pre-order.
Yes, good. Thank you for saying that. Yes. So Gina, you did not have a lot of confidence about writing a book when you started working on it. How did that change?
Yeah, it was not just not having the confidence. I think I was so stuck in all of the emotional reasons why I wanted to write the book that I couldn't get past that emotion to really think clearly. And being a part of the whole top 3 experience, what that did for me, of course, is help me really define the reader, the core message, and the promise with enough clarity that then everything else that I did would have a North Star, because those were the North Stars. And that really made a huge difference.
And how do you feel now that you're about to be published? How do you feel about your confidence as an author?
Oh, I feel very confident. I even feel as if I could write another book and will write another book. So I'm sure you'll be hearing from me again. But it's not just the confidence of saying the book is done. That's not the only confidence. I think the primary confidence, or the confidence that I value the most, is knowing that I now have access to ideas, to a craft, to a way of thinking that is never going to be lost. I have a map. And even though I still haven't yet defined exactly what my next book will be, I know that once I sit with you, I'm confident that I will be able to find exactly the right focus.
Awesome. I love hearing that. I love hearing that. And Casey, who is working on book 2, but share the first book you wrote. What's the first book you wrote?
Well, first, congratulations, AJ.
Thank you.
The first book was Fix This Next for Healthcare Providers, and I wrote that back in 2021. Right?
Yes, you and Liz are actually Tatiana, I think maybe too. My unicorns who finished their first draft in workshop. So Casey, you came in to just write that book, but I don't know that you had another book plan.
Yeah, I wanted to have another book plan. I just didn't have any direction. I remember thinking, I want to write a book, but I mean, who am I to write one? And what am I going to write about? And who wants to read anything that I would say? Just didn't feel like I had anything worthy of sharing with the world until your workshop.
So you wrote Fix This Next, derivative, but now you're working on a book and have been working on your second book for over a year. And you make really good progress with it, and I know we're going to be hearing about it soon. But I wanted to talk to you because I feel like you gained so much confidence as you wrote that book and really found your voice, and also remembered a little bit about who you are. And maybe
Yes. Yeah, you did that to me. It was like, I know it sounds so cheesy, but whenever the day that we were in editing retreat and you said, that's it, you've just found your voice. I remember just crying all the way back from South Carolina to Kentucky thinking, oh my gosh, she's right, but I've found so much more. And it's like I found myself in a lot of ways. I found my feelings that I'd buried for years. And the process that you taught us through, like what Tatiana was saying about the craft, it in the stories, it forced me to go back and just think about things and find those memories again. And it just opened up a different part of me that I think I was afraid to find for a long time. Or maybe I wasn't afraid, maybe I just wasn't ready. And so the path toward authorship for me was so much more than just writing a book. I mean, that's just a bonus. I didn't realize what I was really getting myself into.
Yeah, you have a whole new life.
Yeah, I do. And a more confident one. You know, I realized that during this process, I was very confident in what I did, which was being an entrepreneur and a few other things, but I wasn't confident in who I was. And going through this process of becoming an author really helped me to feel confident in that regard as well. And that's a priceless thing that I could never repay you for. And so I appreciate that. And I appreciate all of the nudges and the kicks and the reassurance and all of the support that I got, and that I now watched you give other people too. You didn't always have to give it directly to me for me to feel it. And so that was great.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. That makes me choke up a little bit. You know, it's precious to me to see all of you because, you know, I just saw Jeff Shaw made a comment about all these dynamic women who maybe lacked confidence in writing the book initially. But that's the thing, writing a book opens you up. It actually breaks you open and requires a lot of you. And then you have to overcome all of these ideas that you might have had about what is an author and who gets to write books and what am I made of, and to see all of you blossom. You are all so confident in your books now when you talk about them with total confidence, and that is that's worth everything. Do you before we close, I just wonder if any of you have a thought about what you might tell to a new author who's feeling like I just don't think I can do this thing. Anyone here?
I'd
Liz?
say one quick thing, and that is if you have that level of passion that made you think that you ought to be writing a book, that's all you need to know, because that's the thing that's going to get you to tell the stories and have the impact on your readers.
That's beautiful. Liz?
I would say if you have something that you'd like to share with the world, AJ's program, whether through following in her book or through workshop, will provide all of the structure and all of the teaching and guidance that you need to write a must-read book. It's a fantastic plan.
Thank you, Liz. You're so sweet. Tatiana, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah. Just didn't want to unmute. I would say that if you're thinking about writing a book, really give yourself a chance to first decide whether you're going to write a business card book, something that will not necessarily people would read and recommend to others, or whether you're going to really do this right and do this well. And if you decide to go to do the latter, then this workshop and this book are huge support, and especially the workshop with the one-on-ones and AJ, your magic with pulling out of a human being their true core beliefs and their really amazing good that we all have that we want to share. And I really am grateful to have come across your workshop. And if you're on the fence, just do it.
Tatiana, thank you. Just real quick, Casey, do you have anything you want to add for any aspiring author who might lack confidence?
Yeah, I guess I have to if everyone else went. Yes. So this is pretty much what I'm writing about in this second book is I would encourage anyone to run toward the fear, run toward it, because there is a reason that you are afraid. And when you go after it, it's going to open up so many things for you in so many ways. So that's it.
Well, thank you all, my lovely powerhouses. I appreciate you showing up for me today. It means the world. And I'll see you soon. I'll see you in writing sprints.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay. So next we have another laser coaching session, and this time we have Kathy. Hey, Kathy.
Hello. Hi, AJ. Congratulations on all this stuff.
Thank you so much. I haven't seen you on the Zoom in a while.
I know. I have not been on the Zoom. I've been on too many Zooms.
Yeah. So tell me, what are we talking about today? What are you working on?
Yeah. So today I am working on a new book, which is my third book. And this is about leaning into women owning their full humor selves.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah.
So what are you hoping to get out of your feedback today?
Any way to tweak it. It's still new. I'm at sort of the early stages of sort of development, and it's sort of still it's a little squishy in my head. So I know you're so good at this stuff, and I've worked with you before. I've had the pleasure of working with you before, and you're so good at like helping hone it. And I'm hoping I can get it maybe a little less squishy.
Okay. So when you say okay, so say it one more time.
All right. So you want me to read the sentence? I did the template.
Oh, you did it? Okay.
Yeah. So let me do that. So I'm writing for rule-breaking women leaders and founders who get stuff done and want to bring more of their true humor and playfulness confidently to their work and relationships. But they're struggling with how to do it and may not realize that they are really also dealing with an underlying discomfort around fully owning their humor without apology.
That is a beautiful leader statement. That's beautiful. It's really, really clear.
Is it?
Yeah, it's very, very, very clear. How did it feel to write that? And I mean, I know who your reader is from hearing that.
Okay, that's good. It took me a while. I think it's probably clearer than it's been because this book idea has been sitting in my head for a while, and sort of nudging it during COVID. I was nudging on it and sort of noodling around, and I realized it has crystallized. So to hear it out loud with you, it sounds a little bit, well, a lot more, I think, crystallized than it had been in the past. And I made the conscious decision to who my audience would be So I'm not preaching to the unconverted. I made a decision to preach to the already converted.
Yeah. I like that actually, though, because you're talking about the thing that they want to do it, but there's something holding them back. So that's a much easier delivered promise then.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it is. And yeah, I think it's you're not overcoming. I think I don't have to sell them on why. It's more the underlying, I think, narrative that's bugging them. I think when people often say, well, I don't know how, I think that's really part of it, but it is that deeper thing of, I think it's that underlying fear that needs to be dealt with. I don't think it's so much a manual as much as it is a manifesto. I think it's really them owning that. Yeah, I don't think they need the how-to. I think they just are looking for the permission is what I've come to that.
So then did you drop any core message yet?
Did I drop any core message?
Did you draft a core message yet? Or have you tinkered with it before this or?
I did, but honestly, it was so, I think, too broad, and I put it away for a few months. And I'm coming back to it now with this clarity. And so I think the core message is really that this is a celebration and permission guide versus a more than a how-to.
So that's a description of the book focus.
Yeah.
The core message is you say it to me, and the thing I'm coming to the table as you've described as a reader.
Yeah.
I really want to be more playful.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really know how. So that's how I describe it.
Mm-hmm.
But the core message is a thing that helps me realize what you need me to realize. It's not the description of the book being a guide. So it's probably related to it's not the how, it's the undercurrent of what's holding you back. So your core message is probably related to, so that reader statement, that fourth Mad Lib is really the beginning of core message.
Okay.
I'm just a little sneaky like that. So
yeah.
So it's not the core message, but it gives us clues. So, if you're saying you think it's how, but what's really happening is fear. But I think you probably, fear is pretty generic. I think you probably know something really more specific than that. How do you get over it? Well, but did you really have to get over it? This is my question for you, because you seem like someone who didn't have to get over it.
Not really. I think the way I got over it was to just say, what it is that we don't like funny assertive women. And I think there's that, if I own that, I'll be one of those. And I think it was just a decision point for me. It was like, if I'm going to be really who I am, I'm going to have to take off all the things that aren't me and not worry about it. So that was a decision point. And then I never really looked back. And so I think it was less about I knew instinctively what I had to do. So I think the fear is very generic. I think the specific thing is the narrative. There's an old narrative out there, I think, that people are, especially women, are a little wary about, I think.
So the core message is something along, and this isn't it. But
no.
Just it's not that you don't know how to be more playful and humorous. It's that you are stuck in the trap of an old narrative that prevents you from being your true self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we're doing myth busting.
Yeah. So it's something, said differently, but what I'm hearing you say is that's the main message is you think it's that you need to know how, but it's actually this other thing. And when you let go of that narrative, because you just said something really important, you said you got rid of everything that wasn't you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the way forward. That's a little daunting in a core message for a person, right? Oh no, I have to get rid of everything that's not me.
Yeah.
But just understanding that The reason you feel like you don't know how is because you're trapped in a narrative that you didn't create.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so the core message should be a lean in kind of thing, like, oh, so it's this reshift, it's the reframe, right? And then that's the perfect thing for a manifesto, a reframe.
Okay, so it's a reframe around, look, it's not that you don't know how to do it.
Right.
It's that you need to let go of this narrative, this false narrative that doesn't serve you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
False narrative about, I think you need to add a little bit more there. False narrative about funny women or funny, assertive women, as you said earlier.
Yeah,
And
I think that's it.
yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. Which is, I think that sounds like the core promise, or I guess the core message you're saying of the book.
Core message. And then the next step is promise. And so the promise is within the pages of the book, not someday, but by the time they're done reading it, how will they be different?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so your challenge then is you want a promise that speaks to what they want. So playfulness, right? They want to feel something, experience something, be more themselves, whatever, however you qualify it. And then you decide, can you deliver it within those pages? If you can't, then you either modify the promise so that you can, or you figure out a way so you can.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the key is within the pages.
Got it. Okay.
Unlike a speech.
Yeah.
That's different.
And then it sounds like I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit. It sounds like your title really goes back to the core message. It's really
And so I have my title, Write a Must Read, is a promise title. Profit First is a core message title. Solution core message title.
Mm-hmm.
This is a solution core message title. This is a promise title, Clockwork.
Yeah.
So those are the most popular, is promise or solution, which is core message.
Okay. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So great. So we're gonna get to read it soon.
I hope so. I stopped and started many times. So this is fantastic. And thank you for, bouncing this around with me. So
fun. It's super fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing up today, Kathy. Appreciate you.
You know what? Thank you, as always.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Thanks so much.
So we have one more laser coaching, and that is Simone, and then we're going to wrap things up. So Simone, hey.
Hi, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. So tell me what we're talking about today.
So I really want to talk about my core message for a new book that I want to write. I wrote a book that came out in October of 2020, and that book it's more about my family. So those are my kids. It's a lot of our stories, but it's really based on the idea of not just you're enough, you're more than enough, realizing what you're capable of and recognizing that the little things you do every day matter. I kind of want to take this book a step farther, and I want to find out from you if it is too narrow. So one of the things I've realized, and my target audience before was women, and I'm not going to get in the specifics of all that, but what I realized after this book came out and I got feedback from women who read it, one of the big things I like to talk about is, what do you want? And I'll have a lot of women say to me, I don't know what I want. I've just done the same thing forever because that's what I was supposed to do, or that's how I was labeled. And so I really want to kind of break down the barrier of labels. Again, having a multicultural family, having just all of these labels that whether it's put upon ourselves or that we feel that society puts upon us, how that changes the way we interact with people and how we can overcome that.
Okay.
So I kind of wanted to break that down a bit with you.
Okay. Did you do the reader statement at all?
Yes, I did.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so the reader profile. So I am writing for women in their 30s to 50s. And again, I struggle always with the audience but that's where I'll start. Who want to move beyond a label that they have given themselves or others have placed upon them, but they are struggling with being able to see past the limiting label and may not realize they are also dealing with fear and self-doubt of who they might actually be.
Ooh, I like that last part. So you're stuck on women 30s and 50s. Why not just people?
Well, because I think like maybe I'm going back to like my speech writing piece of too broad of an audience. But trust me, I mean, I have so many stories of, I have one of my daughter's best friends who he's gay and he has a food truck. So I've asked him lots of questions, like in terms of when he's in a kind of a rural area and he has to act differently and dress differently when he is at the food truck than he normally would in his life, because that's how he's labeled. And, so those kinds of things that I think it's beyond women, but I don't know how to, if I can go that broad with something like this.
So you can. I mean, so people is too broad, but people who are struggling with getting freeing themselves from labels is not broad.
Okay.
So what connects your readers is always hearts and minds, and very often not demographics. Sometimes it is demographics, but I mean, when I talk about for my book, it's my readers are aspiring authors and authors who want to write a book that people love and recommend. That's really specific.
Right.
So it's not people who are just trying to get a lead magnet out or whatever. Mike's books are entrepreneurs, but they're that's a broad category, but their hearts and minds, whatever they're dealing with at the moment, is the issue. So what they want and why they can't get it is something for you to think about. What your readers want and why they can't get it, and that's what connects all of them. So it could be moms, it could be your friend who owns the food truck. It's just folks who would really like to shed their labels, but maybe they're worried about the consequences of shedding those labels.
Yeah. And so I don't think it's that narrow. Like, I think I can, really expand the topic, because I think about it all the time with my kids. Like, for example, I'll go to a doctor's appointment with someone that doesn't know us, and they'll be like, well, who's this? Okay, well, that's my son. So every time it's like, well, oh, he's your adopted son. Oh, he's my son. So these things where I really kind of want to break into how we say things, how we do things, because then is his title my adopted son? No, he's my son. But when people keep saying that, it's like, that's what you hear and that's what you get used to. So that's really why one of the reasons I really want to write this is because I think that we focus so much on the title and the label and not about the actual person. And we struggle to be our authentic self because of, the world around us.
But you said something that's kind of buried in there that's actually really cool.
Okay.
And that's all cool. Okay. Speaking as a person who comes from multiple marginalized communities, thank you 1,000 times. I write the book for sure. But you said something really, really cool buried in there. You said that they're afraid, I'm paraphrasing a little. You said that they want to get rid of their labels, but they're afraid of the consequences, right? Meaning what other people will say or do if they get rid of those labels. But what's really going on is they're afraid of who they really are. That's powerful.
Yeah.
So your reader thinks, help me. They're coming to your book thinking, okay, help me get the courage maybe to, step out of these labels, right? But you're going to confront them with reality. Reality is, yes, that's real. We have to deal with the way society is and all of those things. Those are real fears, not imagined. But underneath it, swirling, is what you're really afraid of, which is, who are you?
Yeah.
without the label.
Yeah.
You gotta write this book. That's powerful. So core message comes from that last part, right? Core message comes from, it's, you know, it's more that underneath your fear of letting go of moving past labels is a fear about who you really are.
Right.
That's a core message.
Okay. Is this recorded?
Yes.
So I can go back and listen again.
Yes. Anybody's still here, you can maybe write it down first. So underneath your fear of moving past labels is, no, underneath your fear of letting go of labels is a deeper fear about finding out who you really are. Something like that. Go
Yeah.
watch the recording. But
Okay.
that's a powerful core message.
Yeah. And that's what I see, because I think a lot of times we do get stuck in that, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I used to do that all the time. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just Rob's wife, justifying who I am, but that's me. But I use that to kind of say, oh, no, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm, you know, and really trying to figure out, okay, is that a scary thing? No, that's an amazing thing. So
listen, that's a really specific book. So if you first you said, I want people to, you know, break free from their labels, that's one book. But a book like this that says, hey, you know, your fears are justified in many cases, but that's not really what's driving you. You would find the courage to deal with this if you could face who you really are.
mm-hmm.
And the uncertainty that you don't know who that is yet. That's powerful.
Yeah.
I hope you write it. Your next.
That's the plan.
Okay, so you have a reader statement, you have a core message. The third piece you need in order to write the book is the promise you can deliver within its pages. So that is going to take some thinking.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I hope you write it. It sounds like something we really, really, really need.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Do you have more clarity now?
Yeah, absolutely. I was, you know, I was struggling to really say, okay, is this too linear? Is this too, but now that we've talked it out, I can kind of see so many angles and so many stories I can bring into it. And now I got to figure out the promise so that I can make sure I can fulfill that.
Then you can write it. And
Yeah.
remember that the promise is, so if you don't think you can fulfill it, then you have two options. You can write something else within the book so that you can,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes it's the challenge, right? Okay, I don't think with what I have I can do it, but how could I do it? How could I do it? And if you still can't, then you modify the promise.
Okay. It's great. As
Okay.
always.
We can't wait to see what you do. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining today.
Thank you so much, as always, for amazing advice.
You are so welcome. We look forward to that book. So that's it. That is the launch live stream palooza. I like to, I guess, name things palooza. For Write a Must Read, which was my book that's out today, I really encourage you to please go to writermustread.com and look at the bonuses, which will be available through July 1. And I'm super psyched about them. I created some awesome stuff for you guys, and I hope that it is of value to you. And on a personal note, I just want to thank everybody, Amber Vilhauer, who tirelessly helped me pull off this launch, held my hand, text me when I needed it. Her whole entire team, who they're all aces, they're amazing, they're flawless. Seriously, her entire team is flawless. Specifically, Jade, who's running the show today, Megan, who's been working on the website, and Amber Kid, who's been organizing the whole thing. They are geniuses, and I couldn't have done it without them. Laura Stone, my right hand, who is just like a sister to me, and really helped me get this book to market. And everybody whose stories in the book, all my author students who generously donated their time today to come talk about books. Too many people to thank. I thanked a bunch of people in acknowledgments, but I just want to make sure I acknowledge Amber's team, especially for this launch, on Laura Stone, and they've all worked tirelessly. And thank you so much for your support. What I care most about is that you follow your heart and write the book that matters to you, and that you write a better book because you are focused on your reader. Thank you, everybody.